Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video series I would like to give the definitive answer to three of the most important questions that we face as a species. Number one, why do we have so many problems? Number two, why aren't we solving our problems? Number three, how do we solve our problems? As you can see, all three questions have to do with problems. And since we have so many problems, and since there's more confusion that surrounds this subject than there is on any other subject, I have created a very special teaching tool to help me answer these three questions. My special teaching tool uses knowledge in a way that's never been seen before. But before I tell you more about my special teaching tool, and before I give the definitive answer to three of the most important questions that we face as a species, I would like to give my overall perspective based on 25 years of extensive research and analysis. And I have concluded that everything in our society of any significance has everything to do with the fact that there is something seriously wrong with us. For starters, there's something wrong with our health, our behavior, our mentality, and our belief system. The problem with our belief system is that most of us don't know that we have an inaccurate belief system. Most of us don't know that there are three stages of knowledge and that there are three stages of false knowledge. Most people don't know that we have false knowledge in place of the knowledge we need in the first stage of knowledge, where knowledge is acquired. Most of us don't know that we're making mistakes, bad lifestyle choices, bad applications in the second stage of knowledge, where knowledge is applied. And most of us don't know that most of our problems in the third stage of knowledge are 100% within our control, where knowledge is manifested. So when we think of our belief system, think of the three stages of knowledge. Think of acquired, applied, manifested. Or think of thoughts, actions, reactions. Beliefs, causes, effects. Belief system, lifestyle choices, feedback system. The things we think in the first stage of knowledge, the things we do or have done to us in the second stage of knowledge, and then the things we get in the third stage of knowledge. Now, so that's the problem with our belief system. Most of us don't know we have an inaccurate belief system. The problem we have with our mentality is that we have the wrong mentality. We have an exchange mentality where we compete for resources on an abundant planet, when we should have a gift mentality and cooperate and share the abundance this planet has to offer. And then the problem with our behavior is that we have a dark side to our behavior. And then the darkest of the dark side of our behavior, or the worst of us, or the sickest of us, own and control every major sector of human endeavor. So they are in a position to brainwash the masses. They can misdirect all of our so-called experts, and then our so-called experts can turn around and misdirect all of us. So that means our so-called experts are not the true experts. And then the problem with our health is that we are sick. We are an extremely sick species, where one of the worst symptoms of all is the dark side of our behavior, where we now prey upon our own species. So this is a vicious cycle where the dark side of our behavior is the number one source for false knowledge, which is keeping us from finding the knowledge we need. The number one problem with knowledge is we don't have the knowledge we need, and it's obvious we don't have it, otherwise we wouldn't have any problems. And the number one reason why we can't find that knowledge is because we have false knowledge in its place. In other words, we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. So those are two forms of ignorance where we don't know, and those are both in the first stage of knowledge. So we can start our journey off in life on the right path, where we have knowledge and make good applications, and end up in paradise, which is simply a place where we don't have problems that are within our control. Or we can start our journey off in life on the wrong path, in Plato's cave, if you will, with false knowledge, making bad applications or mistakes, and end up with problems that are within our control. We're no longer in paradise. Simple. All we have to do to go back to the garden, so to speak, is to find the knowledge we're missing. Unfortunately, there are a lot more problems of knowledge besides those two forms of ignorance. There are 12 sources of false knowledge and 7 wellness factors. And the easiest way to deal with every one of these obstacles is to simply test an idea as time has come. You see, solving problems is not that difficult. All we have to do is satisfy two groups of needs. Unfortunately, most of us are not willing and able to do that. which is why I added 2 preliminary steps to the only thing we have to do, thereby perfecting a 3-step process. The first step addresses the willingness issue on a temporary basis, so we can see what we're missing, and then be in a better position to take the second step, where we want to correct 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis. And then once we add these 5 main mistakes onto our list of mistakes to correct, we'll finally be in a position to do the only thing we have to do, and that is to satisfy these 2 groups of needs. And I call these 2 groups of needs the science and art of solving problems that are 100% within our control. The science has to do with the first group of needs, and the art has to do with the second group of needs. The science has to do with the law of cause and effect and is linear. The art has to do with the ripple effect and is circular. The science has to do with satisfying 12 essential needs, thereby removing the primary causes. The art has to do with satisfying 2 additional temporary needs, thereby dealing with subsequent causes as well as subsequent needs. The science has to do with knowledge of how to live, where we nurture the trees of life. And the art has to do with knowledge of how to adapt, where we have altered the trees of life, which in turn has altered us. And the science has to do with the oneness of disease based on the anatomical limitations we were given at birth. And the art has to do with the uniqueness of disease based on the anatomical limitations from making mistakes that have damaged our anatomy. So all we have to do to solve every problem that is 100% within our control is to satisfy these 2 groups of needs. And since most people are not willing and able to do that, the best place to start is with the very first of a 3-step process that I perfected. Remember, the first step addresses the willingness issue because we're only going to be doing something on a temporary basis. Then once we get to see what we're missing, we'll have an aha moment. We'll have a brand new reference, and we'll realize, oh my God, life is an illusion. All these systems that have been trying to solve my problems all these years will never be able to solve my problems and won't be able to solve yours, because the solution to every one of these problems lies within each and every one of us. Most of our problems are self-inflicted. That means you are the only one who can do something about it. The problem, you don't have the knowledge, and 2, you probably won't be willing to do it if you found out what you had to do. That's why we want to do something on a temporary basis. That's why we want to test an idea as time has come, so we can simply see what we're missing and realize life has been an illusion. Life is not complicated. There's one common link to almost every one of our problems. We're making very simple mistakes. We're not satisfying our essential needs. And when we don't do that initially, we create additional temporary needs. So we have to satisfy those 2 on a temporary basis. But our additional temporary needs are going to change as conditions change, and will vary from one individual to the other, even within that one individual's own lifetime. So it's going to be real simple for most of us. All we have to do is apply the science, remove the primary causes, and in most cases that's all we have to do. But for a small percentage of us, it's going to be a little more complicated because we've damaged our anatomy, and plus we've damaged the environment as well. So we're going to have another group of needs we must satisfy. And this is going to depend upon the damage you've done individually to yourself, unknowingly mostly. And we have to take in consideration what's happened to the environment, as well as our own genetic makeup over a certain period of time, because our ancestors have been making these mistakes for a long time. We've been on the wrong path for way too long. And the problem is that everyone's in love with it, everyone's addicted to it, the world revolves around it, it makes us sick. Sickness begets sickness. Now the sickest of us takes advantage of the rest of us being sick, and they can't do that unless they keep us sick. So everything in our society of any significance of all has everything to do with our health, or more specifically our lack of health. And why is that? Because we have a dark side to our behavior, and we're using the wrong mentality. So with the wrong mentality, we create the absolute tool of control, money. And then with the wrong belief system, we'll continue to keep making mistakes. When you can control what people know, you can control what people do. So everything related to health has to be controlled by the status quo in order for the status quo to remain the status quo. And when I'm referring to the status quo, I'm not referring to the actual systems themselves. I'm referring to that very small group of people who own and control every major sector of human endeavor. They're brainwashing all of us at a level most of us have absolute no conception of. Even those who are awake have no idea how they've been brainwashed since children to believe certain ideas. I've gone back and looked at TV shows I watched as a child. I'm going, oh my God, they were planting in that wrong information way back then, and now they're doing it at a higher level than ever. More than ever. My God, it's frightening to think what our children's belief system, our children's belief system is going to look like in the future if we don't change what we're doing. It's going to be harder and harder to get out of this cave of ignorance. But the first step is to be willing to admit that we don't have the answers. And now we got to find the courage to do something we've never done before. We got to break away from that stream that's going the wrong direction. It's not easy to break away from the herd. That's why we got to reach the tipping point. If we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. We got to get enough of us to do the first of my three-step process to get everyone else's attention. There's only 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes that are causing most of our problems. 2 of those ways most of us aren't willing to do. So it's a waste of time. Sure, it makes your life better, but we're still in hell because no man is an island. The individual cannot escape the collective. And no one has a right to bring the rest of us down, but yet the vast majority of us are bringing all of us down. But it's time for the trim tabs of society. It's time for the first wave of heroes to step up and test an idea as time has come and be an example. Help us reach the tipping point. So then the second wave of heroes can jump on. And that's when all those geezers are going to jump on board. It's going to be exciting to see Grandpa out there skipping around and Grandma having a life again. This is an exciting time to live. We have a time in life right now to transform this planet so fast we won't even believe it. But it begins with you. I realize there are 3 ways of heroes. And right now, the only people that matter really are the first wave. Although this message is for every one of the 3 waves, you just might not be ready for the second wave yet. Who knows? You may be watching this 5 years since I taped it, and we've already reached the tipping point long ago, and we're already in the garden looking back in amazement at where we were and what we were doing and how we couldn't figure out there was such a simple solution. So all we have to do is the very first of a 3-step process, and I've uploaded a video that explains exactly how to do that. I'll provide a link in this video, in the description, and a link here once I figure out how to do it. And we can finally reach the tipping point. So it's time to get excited. It's time to do something you've never done before. Test an idea as time has come. Do the first of my 3-step process so you can see what you're missing, and then you'll have done the second step on the hero's journey. The first step is, do you have the ears to hear? Well, hopefully if you're still listening now, you've got the spiritual ears to hear this message. The second step on the hero's journey is, do you accept the mission? Are you going to reject it? Prove that what I'm saying is true. There are videos out there of people doing what I'm talking about. Joe Cross, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Juice Saved My Life. Dozens of people are doing this. The transformation is so amazing if we can get enough people to do this. Everyone you know is going to go, oh my God, look at Fred, look at Mary. Look at them. They could barely move. They looked like death's door was around the corner. And now look at them. They look better than me. So, in closing, all I can say is you guys are in for a treat. Now that I've given my overall perspective based on 25 years of extensive research and analysis, I'd like to give what I believe to be the definitive answer to 3 of the most important questions that we face as a species. Number 1, why do we have so many problems? Number 2, why aren't we solving our problems? Number 3, how do we solve our problems? But before I give very simple answers to these 3 very profound questions, I would like to tell you a little bit more about my special teaching tool, which uses knowledge in a way that's never been seen before. It uses what I call the 3 stages of knowledge, and that's not to be confused with what Schopenhauer called the 3 stages of truth. And my special teaching tool uses what Socrates called the problems of knowledge. And even though Socrates said that the problem of knowledge is the key to all of our problems, and even though Socrates said that over 2,400 years ago, we're still going to be looking at knowledge in a way that's never been seen before, because we're not just looking at the problems of knowledge, and we're not just looking at the 3 stages of knowledge. We're looking at the 3 stages of knowledge and the problems of knowledge at the same time, because they're all on the same map. In fact, it's sort of like 2 maps in one. The bottom 3 boxes are like Plato's map to help us get out of Plato's cave, and the top 3 boxes are to help us get to paradise. And it all begins with our belief system. And the whole purpose of my special teaching tool is to make sure we don't get tricked and fooled into starting our journey off on the wrong path with false knowledge. You see, the only way to solve problems is to use logic, and there are two criteria that are needed when we use logic to solve problems. One is the structure and the other is the specifics. So I have perfected a very special teaching tool to prove the structure, and then I've created or perfected a three-step process so that you can prove the contents or the specifics or the details. There's not a thing I can say that's going to convince you that there are no logical fallacies in what's in my context or the specifics or the details. But you can prove it to yourself. But we don't want to start with the context. We want to start with the structure. That's one of the ways we're getting tricked and fooled. So the purpose of my special teaching tool is to make sure that we don't get tricked and fooled into taking the first step in the wrong direction. That's why I interconnected two quadrant systems to create my special teaching tool. And they both use two forms of two-value logic, so that each one of the 6 boxes will have an ordered pair and a polar opposite, and will logically connect to all of its adjacent boxes. And altogether there are 18 connections or 18 portals, and then I've identified 281 of the most important pieces out of the millions of pieces that are within this special teaching tool. And once again, the main purpose of this special teaching tool is to make sure we don't use an invalid structure. You see, when you use logic and you want to prove the structure, you have to think of the context as a train, and the structure is the tracks. The tracks are always one way, just like ordered pairs are one way. That's why I'm using 2 sequential ordered pairs to create my special teaching tool. That may sound complicated, but it's not, because A and B and C are 2 sequential ordered pairs, and we can interconnect those and make ABC. In the same way, 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 are 2 sequential ordered pairs, and we can interconnect those and have 1, 2, 3. So what we have when it comes to the 3 stages of knowledge, remember, knowledge is acquired, applied, manifested. We have thoughts, actions, reactions, beliefs, causes, effects, belief system, lifestyle choices, feedback system. The things we think in the first stage of knowledge, the things we do or have done to us in the second stage of knowledge, and the things we get in the third stage of knowledge. And we can either start our journey off in life with knowledge and end up in paradise where we don't have any problems with inner control, or we can start our journey off in life with false knowledge and end up with hundreds of thousands of problems. So what we want to do is understand how not to take the first step in the wrong direction. So we're using 2 sequential ordered pairs for a reason. Cause and effect. We're living systems. We're subject to the law of cause and effect, just like all matter is subject to Newton's third law of motion, the law of action and reaction. Action and reaction, cause and effect, these are ordered pairs. In fact, the very first quadrant system I created to try to use logic to solve problems was a cause and effect and pleasure and pain quadrant system. To this day, it boggles my mind that I've never seen this before. No one's ever come up with a cause and effect and pleasure and pain quadrant system. And that's how I started. But when I tried to explain everything, I realized, well, where do I put thoughts at? Well, no, thoughts are in a different quadrant system. We have 2 quadrant systems. We have 8 boxes that can be condensed down to 6 boxes. And we can make this so simple because it's really 3 boxes with pluses and minuses. So solving our problems as simple as working backwards from ABC, working backwards using ABC, or counting backwards from 3. And every 7-year-old child knows how to go 3, 2, 1, and they know their ABCs. So my special teaching tool is so simple. Every 7-year-old child can understand how to use it to do what? Not to prove the context. You have to have a lot of intellect and a lot of knowledge to be able to solve a complex problem and have the context correct. There are no logical fallacies, but the structure is simple. You can tell if you're going the wrong direction, and that's the purpose of my special teaching tool. So when we look at my special teaching tool, we have 3 stages of false knowledge, where we have false knowledge in stage 1, mistakes or bad applications or poor lifestyle choices in stage 2, and then we have hundreds of thousands of problems in stage 3. And most of those problems are 100% within our control based on the things we do. Only a very small percentage of our problems are outside of our control. But we've been tricked and fooled into thinking that most of our problems are outside of our control. Remember, there's something seriously wrong with us. Most of us don't know we have an inaccurate belief system. Most of us don't know that we have false knowledge in place of the knowledge we need in the first stage of knowledge. Most of us don't know that we're making mistakes that are causing problems in the second stage of knowledge. And most importantly, most of us don't know that most of our problems are self-inflicted in the third stage of knowledge. So we want to use my special teaching tool to work backwards. Look at the very bottom right quadrant in my 6-box system. And I'm going to have another video that will go into this much more detail. You can click onto it right here. And this will go into much more detail. You'll actually see how it works, and you see how simple it is. And we work backwards. We look at our problems. If it's outside our control, we can't do anything to that. We have to treat the symptom. Otherwise, when the problem is within our control, we don't want to treat the symptom. That's called putting the cart before the horse. In Latin, it's called modus ponens. So if we're going to use logic to solve our problems, that's the flaw we have right now with just about every major system in charge. They're using the wrong approach. They're treating symptoms for problems that are within our control. You don't do that for a problem within your control. You only treat a symptom when it's outside your control. If you're in an accident or an act of nature or war, crime, and violence, if something's done to you, you can't prevent that with a thought and an action. Otherwise, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all these are self-inflicted. It's based on an inaccurate belief system where we're making mistakes and we don't even know it. The sad reality is that most of us are doing things that we think are okay, but they're not okay. They are wrong. And they are the reason why we have so many problems. We are the enemy. We're doing it to ourselves. And then we are the enemy because we're attacking ourselves, the sickest of us, take advantage of us being sick, and they keep us sick. Remember, everything related to health has to be controlled by the status quo to make sure the status quo remains the status quo. And as I mentioned in part 1, I'm not referring to the systems that are involved. I'm talking about a very small group of people that own and control every major sector of human endeavor. And they're misdirecting all of our so-called experts to make sure that none of them and none of us ever figure out that most of our problems are 100% within our control. So the people who we think are experts are not our experts. Doctors are not experts when it comes to a lifestyle-related problem, and 99% of what's happening to us is lifestyle-related. If you get in a car accident, you break a bone, you go to a doctor, that's what they're good for. Nutritionists, they're in the same boat. They're misdirected too. That's why there's more confusion around the subject of nutrition than there is on any other subject. Why is that? Why do we have a Food and Drug Administration? Why are these two combined? We have to wake up and take responsibility. We have to understand that there's a very simple solution to all of our problems. So if you want to have a better understanding of how my 6-box system works, click right here, go to another video that I've already uploaded, that are already filmed rather. It will be uploaded, and you can understand how this simple 6-box system works. And it's so simple, you can bring your children in and say, child, could you make sure we don't take the first step in the wrong direction? Here's the 3 steps. If you can play 2 square, you know how to use my 6-box system. That's how simple this is. Now, as far as the 3 answers to the 3 most important, 3 of the most important questions that we face as a species. Number 1, why do we have so many problems? The reason why we have so many problems has to do with the law of cause and effect, and can be traced back to 11 main events, 5 of which are the 5 main mistakes we're making that are causing most of our problems. The simple answer to the second question, why aren't we solving our problems, has to do with the ripple effect and can be traced back to 21 main problems of knowledge. But there are pieces within pieces when we look at our problems of knowledge. There are duplications. There's a lot more to knowledge than just finding it. We have to apply it. So in effect, we have to go through 2 of those portals or 2 of those doorways to solve our problems. The first doorway has 40 obstacles altogether that are keeping us from finding the knowledge we need. And then there are 13 obstacles in the next doorway. If we find the knowledge, we got to apply it. Knowledge is worthless unless we apply it, so we have to apply that knowledge. So there are 53 problems of knowledge right there. The other 2 problems of knowledge are not in the 2 portals, they're in the 2 boxes that are in the first stage of knowledge. That's where there's knowledge that we're missing in the plus A box of knowledge. If I label the boxes A, B, C, pluses and minuses. And then there's that false knowledge we have in the negative A box of false knowledge. And remember, that's what's getting us in trouble more than anything else. We cannot learn anything when we think we already know. So we have to admit that we have false knowledge. And then what's the best way to deal with all 55 of these obstacles? I already mentioned it in part 1. Do the first of my three-step process. Test an idea as time has come. So, what's the simple answer to the third question? It's simple. All we have to do to solve every problem that's 100% within our control is to satisfy two groups of needs that are based on the law of cause and effect in our anatomy and the ripple effect and the damage we've done to our anatomy, as well as society and the environment. One more time. The simple answer to the first question has to do with the law of cause and effect and can be traced back to 11 main events, 5 of which are causing most of our problems. Simple answer to the second question has to do with the ripple effect and can be traced back to 21 main problems of knowledge, 55 total altogether. And the simple answer to the third question, how do we solve our problems? All we have to do is satisfy two groups of needs. One is based on the law of cause and effect, and the other is based on the ripple effect. There are 12 essential needs and 2 additional temporary needs. Remember, I call this the science and art of solving problems that are 100% within our control. The science is very simple, and for the vast majority of us, that's all we have to do. But we can't change everything overnight, so there is a time and a place to help support the body if it's damaged or impaired in any way, shape, or form. Hoping that it's only impaired and will return to homeostasis and we won't have to do anything. So there really is a true art when it comes to solving problems that are 100% within our control. How do we know what to do? Sometimes the best thing to do is nothing whatsoever. But if the part of your body that's damaged is producing things your body needs, then you better make sure your body gets it. We might need some insulin or thyroxine. Who knows what else we might need? We might even need cholesterol. So solving our problems is a little more complicated now than it used to be. Before, all we had to do is just correct the mistake. But now we've been making mistakes for a long time. We've damaged ourselves, society, and the environment. And now we're going to have to work downstream to an extent. But to really get out of Plato's cave, we got to work upstream. Remember, we're in the third stage of knowledge where all the problems are at. We got to work upstream and go, yeah, we're the enemy. There we are. We're making the mistakes. Go back and go, yep, there's the false knowledge. That's what starts it off. And then we go, oh my God, we're the enemy again. Look what's up there in the doorway. What's the number one source for false knowledge? It's the dark side of our behavior. They're the ones who are keeping us in Plato's cave more than anything else. And remember, the only way to deal with any of these obstacles, in fact, the only way to defeat the rules of the world is to not focus on them. Focus on ourselves. That's the solution. We all play a role when it comes to solving every problem that is 100% within our control. And all you have to do is be the best that you can be. All you have to do is satisfy these two basic needs, or these two groups of needs. Every other animal strives to survive. Why can't we strive to survive? What is wrong with us? Every animal tries to be the best it can be. Why aren't we doing it? Because society attacked early when the individual was helpless. Before we were even able to walk and talk, our parents taught us the same mistakes that were taught to us. All of our problems begin in childhood. All of our problems can be traced back to our traditions. You see, when you look at your traditions, it includes all the accumulated wisdom and all the accumulated mistakes. So all the great things about our species can be reflected in the wisdom, and all the bad things in the mistakes. Well, why can't we figure it out? Aren't we smart enough? Of course we're smart enough. But we've got the darkest of the dark side of our behavior screwing us, keeping us ignorant, controlling what we know so that we don't know what to do. So all you have to do is find and apply knowledge that's currently missing. And I explain this a little bit better in the video that goes into my special teaching tool. And I'll need to do some follow-up videos to put this more together, but eventually I'll have a website that will tie all this together. So when you're looking at my special teaching tool, where out of the 281 pieces, I've assigned whole numbers to 120 and sub-numbers to the other 161 to make this easier to follow. Don't complicate it. Don't look at all the pieces. And then 212 of those pieces are in the 6 boxes, and 69 of those pieces are in the 18 portals. 53 of those pieces are in 2 of the portals we have to go through, or 2 of the doorways. We already talked about that. 40 in the first, 13 in the second. The other 16 pieces are in the other 16 portals. And then the 212 pieces that are in the 6 boxes, that may sound complicated, but it's not, because those come from 128 pieces, that come from 25 main pieces, that come from 5 main groups, where there's 14, 5, 3, 2, and 1 respectively. So that means there's 25 pieces in 5 groups, and if all 5 pieces in all 5 groups were in all 6 boxes, that'd be 150 pieces, but they're not. We have 24 and 24 in the first stage of knowledge, 20 and 20 in the second stage of knowledge, and 20 and 20 in the third stage of knowledge. So there's 128. Then I added 4 pieces to hide pieces in. So out of the 120 pieces, there's another 57 pieces that need to be added onto that are hidden, that were given sub-numbers. And that means there's actually a total of 177 main pieces within my special teaching tool. And then there are millions of pieces within those pieces, because every piece is like a Russian doll. And out of those millions of pieces, I've identified 104 pieces. So 104 and 57 is 161, 161 and 120 is 281. Or you could say there's 177 and 104. 177 main pieces, 104 sub pieces that are within those main pieces. But I want to make this simple. In fact, it was interesting when I developed this special teaching tool over the years. It took me a long time before I gave it a universal numbering system, because I knew things were changing so much that I didn't want to keep having to remember brand new numbers. And when I finally did assign numbers to everything, it was fascinating for me to go back and look at what I had done, because I'm gifted mathematically, and I was able to hide pieces at the right place because I knew I didn't want to focus any attention on them. So that's why I hid 57 pieces. I didn't even identify them initially. When I first said, I got all the pieces I want to identify. Where are they? Here they are, 120 of them. And then I go, well, I didn't really identify those. Well, I can still identify them. I can give them sub-numbers. But then I realized, well, to really be accurate, to show every piece of the puzzle, I had to include those 57. And now the other 140 sub-pieces come from 24 pieces, 60 pieces, and 20. 24 pieces are in the portals. This is why there are so many problems of knowledge. There are 6 sub-pieces in piece number 7, 8 sub-pieces in piece number 8, and 10 sub-pieces that are mixed in between 18 and 54. So that's 24 pieces. And then in the boxes, piece number 35 has to do with 10 subsequent needs, or 34 rather, has to do with 10 subsequent needs from having a weak connection to everything around us, or for being so sick. And those are duplicated in all 6 boxes. So there are 60 sub-pieces right there. And then when I identified the 5 main mistakes, they turned out to be sub-pieces, but I didn't want them to be sub-pieces. I gave them whole numbers. So now we have 20 more duplications where I hid pieces as sub-pieces only so that I could show whole numbers, because they're too important. Now that will make a whole lot more sense when you see my other video where I explain those piece numbers. Right now, I'm not even going to try to explain it in more detail. Hopefully this will intrigue you to watch my other video. So if you haven't watched part 1, please do so. This will help you understand the 3 stages of knowledge better. And then be sure to follow this video up by looking at another video I've done to help you understand the 6-box system that I created, which I've given many names. I call it the Epiphany Maker. I've called it Plato's Map, the Hero's Map, the Ultimate Schematic, and that's the video you'll see. It'll be the Ultimate Schematic, and I'll probably end up calling that video the Ultimate Schematic, because that's exactly what it is. It shows where all the pieces are, so now you can't get tricked and fooled, and that's how the whole world works. The people who rule the world are masters of illusion. They're masters of misdirection. They're psychopaths, they're con artists, they're magicians. And all they have to do is keep us distracted. All they have to do is to point our so-called experts east and tell them to look for a sunset. Hey, I'm doing everything right the way I'm going. Little did I know the very first step was wrong. So that's the purpose of my special teaching tool, is to make sure we don't put the cart before the horse. Don't be guilty of modus ponens. Forget all that other garbage and logic. Remember, our educational systems are controlled. Logic is supposed to make things simpler, not more complicated. When I started studying logic, I thought, God, whoever put this together can't even put it together right. Plus, we're studying a lot of things that aren't important. There's only 2 things we need to know when it comes to solving problems. And that's those 2 forms of 2-value logic that all of us are born with. Ordered pairs and polar opposites. Sounds too simple. In fact, Aristotle was criticized for, oh, you're only using 2-value logic. You're not using multi-value logic or infinite value logic. Well, you need to use that when you look for the specifics, but not the structure. The structure has to use 2-value logic so you don't get tricked and fooled. And you never start looking for logical fallacies in systems with invalid structures. That's a big mistake all of us are making. Don't start looking for the structure, for the logical fallacies in a structure, in the specifics or the contents, because you may never find any. But it doesn't matter, because when it comes to logic, you have to have the structure and the logic. The structure must be valid, and there cannot be any logical fallacies. So start with the structure, use my 6-box system, use what Sherlock Holmes did in those novels. Eliminate the impossible. So that's what we want to do. We want to exclude the impossible, eliminate the impossible. And we do that by looking at the structure first. And what you're going to find is that all the systems that are in charge are in portals 106 and 105, giving the illusion that we're not having any negative effects. It's an illusion. That's not the solution. We got to get off this negative horizontal loop. We got to get out of Plato's cave. We got to stop making this translative move. We got to make a transformative move. Got to make a vertical move. Got to find that knowledge we're missing, which will be designated as piece number 1, and that will be a circle with a dotted line that's outside of our circle inside the plus A box of knowledge. I have it in a dotted line because it used to be inside of our circle long ago. So the solution to our problems is, oh, I got to find a cure for this, poppycock. We know what to do, we lost it. That's the fall of mankind. You see, long ago our ancestors made a mistake, they fell in love with it, they got addicted to it, they ran to the denial, then they passed it on down to their children, and now it's part of our traditions. So traditions, that's piece number 4. Big piece of the puzzle. Piece number 1, don't have the knowledge we need. Piece number 2, false knowledge in its place. Piece number 3, the dark side of our behavior. Piece number 4, traditions. Oh my God, look what traditions is doing to us. Piece number 5, a malfunctioning survival mechanism. Piece number 6, fear. Piece number 7, subsequent needs that can also be problems of knowledge. 8, the wrong approach. And there are a lot of ways we use the wrong approach, and I only identified 8 of them. And I'm just getting going. So go to my other video and you can check out what these other piece numbers mean. And eventually I'll have a website up and running where you can go to my website, you can see all the piece numbers. And then if you want to find out more about piece number 3, for example, I've got hundreds and hundreds of files on some of these piece numbers. Some of the files have thousands of pages in it. So if you want more details, I have it available, but I want to make this as simple as possible because it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, if you want to make it simple, forget everything about my 6-box system, the ultimate schematic, forget everything about logic, just do the first of my 3-step process. Take the second step, or go on to the second stage of the hero's journey, accept the mission, prove to yourself that you can totally transform your life in a way you will not believe. So, we have to keep in mind, if we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. It's up to you right now that's listening to this to help other people test an idea as time has come. Find the people you know that need this badly and do it yourself, and let's reach the tipping point. As I said before, I know one thing for sure. If you guys do this, you're in for a treat. Now that I've already given my overall perspective based on 25 years of extensive research and analysis, now that I've already told you a little bit more about my special teaching tool that uses knowledge in a way that's never been seen before, now that I've given the definitive answer to 3 of the most important questions that we face as a species, let's take a much closer look at the definitive answer to 3 of the most important questions that we face as a species. But first, I'd like to give the definitive answer to 2 preliminary questions to the first question. And I'm also going to give the definitive answer to a follow-up question for the second question. So I'm going to give the definitive answer to 6 questions. 3 are the most important questions that we face as a species. But the very first question is extremely important because it's important that we're on the same page. So the first question is, what are problems? Well, problems are negative effects. Problems are in the 3rd stage of knowledge, on the wrong path, or in the 3rd stage of knowledge in Plato's cave. And I've already showed you what the cause and effect and pleasure and pain quadrant system looks like. I've also showed you my 6-box system where there are 3 stages of knowledge on the right path that start with knowledge, and we make good applications, and we end up in paradise, a place where we don't have any problems that are within our control. We have unlimited potential. And then we have 3 stages of knowledge on the wrong path, or in Plato's cave, where we start off with false knowledge in the 1st stage, we make mistakes, bad applications in the 2nd stage, and then we manifest hundreds of thousands of problems that are 100% within our control. So all of our problems are in the 3rd stage of knowledge on the wrong path, or they are negative effects. Now, when we look at our negative effects, those effects are either 100% within our control, based on the things we do, our lifestyle choices, or they are not 100% within our control, based on things done to us, like accidents and acts of nature where we have no control whatsoever, or acts of war, crime, and violence where we have limited control. And these piece numbers can be represented as 103 and 104 in my special 6-box system, the ultimate solution, or the ultimate schematic. Piece 103 ties back into pieces 81 to 99. But remember, I told you earlier that I hid 57 pieces altogether. Here are 19 of them. I wanted to hide, and let's just call it 103. If it's within our control, we don't want to focus on the effect. This is one way we're being tricked, you see? What happens when we go to our so-called experts? They name the 103s. Don't name the 103s unless they're life-threatening, because they all tie back to 81 to 95. And what we want to do is we want to name our problems based on what we're doing if they're within our control. Sure, if you have a 104 based on the 100, where you have something done to you, yes, you can't prevent that with a thought and an action. You have to treat the symptom. And that's what our current system is good for, treating symptoms. But not if it's lifestyle related. We're the only ones who can solve those problems. So, question number 1, what are problems? Problems are negative effects. They are in the third stage of knowledge on the wrong path, represented as pieces 103 and 104. We're going to focus on 103 because they're within our control. They have to do with our lifestyle choices. Now, we can sit here and argue till the cows come home about what those lifestyle choices are, but that's not what we're going to do right now. The purpose of this information is to help us see the invalid structures in all the systems that are in charge. And that if we just use valid structure, we know that we don't get a negative C unless we get a negative B. Now, there's 2 ways to have a negative B. There's 2 ways that make a mistake. We cannot be willing to apply what we know, which is not our case because most of us don't know this. Or we can be willing to apply what the same mistakes that were taught to us and that our parents taught to us and that was taught to them. Remember, these mistakes tie back into our traditions. And we've been making the very first mistake, which is the fall of mankind, for 3,000 generations. And we got to stop this cycle. And so now we got the definitive answer to the very first question, our preliminary question, and the first of the 6 questions. And that is, what are problems? Well, now that we know what problems are, let's take a look at the second question. Second question is, do problems serve a purpose? Well, of course they serve a purpose. Remember, there are 3 stages of knowledge, where knowledge is acquired in the first stage, applied in the second stage, manifested in the third stage. Thoughts, actions, reactions, beliefs, causes, effects. Belief system, lifestyle choices, feedback system. Feedback system, yes. Yes, our problems serve a purpose. They're part of the effects. They're supposed to tell us, are you on the right path or are you on the wrong path? Are you satisfying your needs? If you're not satisfying your needs, you're going to end up there. So we can argue till the cows come home as far as what are the specifics to those lifestyle choices, but not now. All I want you to understand is it's not difficult to solve our problems once we figure out how to satisfy those needs. The problem is we're sick and the information isn't getting out there, but enough of us are doing this to be an example for everyone else. Just look around at people who know what to do, or look at someone who's deathly ill and they do what we're talking about. Do the first of my 3-step process and you will have a brand new reference so fast that you'll finally be able to challenge all those old references. That's the problem with false knowledge. We have way too many references that support our current belief system and our current way of life. And there's no way to challenge those, so I'm not going to look at the details, the specifics. Remember, we don't look for specifics first. You always make things simple. You start with the structure. You exclude the impossible like Sherlock Holmes would do. Once you find an invalid structure, you throw the whole thing out. Remember, there are 2 criteria for logic. The structure must be valid, and the content must not have any logical fallacies. Well, don't go looking for logical fallacies in a system that might already have an invalid structure. It's real simple to figure out if the structure is invalid. A little child can tell when we're going the wrong way. Remember, the contents is the train. The structure is the tracks. It's one way, just like my 6-box system, the 3 stages of knowledge. And if I was to tell you, okay, I want you to build a bridge a one-way bridge from California to Florida. And now it's going to take a lot of knowledge and intellect to be able to find a logical fallacy in the blueprints. You got to know a lot to be able to find the flaws in the blueprints. But every 7-year-old child will go, wait a minute, Daddy. Why is the bridge being built from Florida to California? It's a one-way bridge, remember? It's so easy to be tricked and fooled. And again, the purpose of my system is not to prove the specifics or the contents or the details. Everyone's going to want to argue about that. So just test an idea as time has come. And there's 5 main mistakes we're making. Do the best you can at correcting all of them. And good luck. People think, well, you got to be perfect. No, you got to do the best you can. And the more people who do it, that's the key. That's why you have to understand what this is all about. The more people who actually do this, the easier it is for all the rest of us to do it. That's why if we can reach the tipping point, things will change so fast. We'll look back in 10 years in disbelief and horror at what we're doing and how we couldn't figure it out. It's going to blow us away. There's a very simple solution to solve our problem. So, number one, preliminary question, what are problems or negative effects? Third stage of knowledge on the wrong path. Number two, do they serve a purpose? Yes, they're trying to tell us something. They're warning us that something is wrong. Now, the third question would be the very first initial question. Why do we have so many problems? Well, the reason why we have so many problems has to do with the law of cause and effect and can be traced back to 11 main events. And these can be represented as piece numbers. Well, first of all, cause and effect is represented as the second and third stage of knowledge, and then the 11 main events would be pieces 9A, 36 to 40, and 95 to 99. So this is how we got where we are. Somehow or the other, we didn't satisfy our needs. We made a mistake. That's the fall of mankind. It isn't just an act of disobedience. What does that tell us? It doesn't tell us anything. We did something wrong. What was it? Well, we altered one of our needs. We took something we mastered. In fact, if you want to make this really simple, let me give you a parable. Let's say I'm God, and I have a garden for my children, and I said, my children, I want you to stay in the garden. All you have to do is understand one law. There's going to be 2 trees in that garden. You have to nurture one tree, and you got to make sure you don't apply the other tree to the other tree. So if you apply the tree of knowledge to the trees of life, you alter that tree, and then it alters us, and that's how we get problems. That's how you get kicked out of the garden. One law. Nurture the trees of life. Do not apply what you learn to what you need. You alter the need, it alters us. That's how we got kicked out of the garden. We did something wrong. So there are 5 main things we mastered. How did that happen? Well, piece 9A happens to be our neocortex. About 2 million years ago, our brains nearly doubled in size, going from just under 400 cc's to almost 800 cc's. And of course, it kept growing up to a point until we started making mistakes. Now we're devolving. We're getting smaller. We're not as robust. We're not as healthy. And we weren't savages back then. The savages are the ones that are civilized, oddly enough, because cities and civilizations just make things worse. But we have to understand, on the grand scheme of things, where did that happen? Well, if we put the human existence on a football field, where there's 100 yards and 3 feet and 12 inches, we became civilized on the 3-inch line. And that was all because of the third mistake we made on the 6-inch line. That's the Industrial Revolution. That's when we started eating plants that we weren't biologically adapted to eat. And there's plenty of research that proves our brains started getting smaller when we started making this mistake. But don't think that's the big one, because the second mistake is worse than the third, and the first is worse than all of them. And in other words, by the time we made the third mistake, we already had 2 mistakes under our belt. So, if we put the human existence on a football field, the third mistake we made was on the 6-inch line. That'd be about 10,000 years ago. Remember, there's 5 main mistakes we made. The very first mistake happened on the 1-yard line. That's when we took the very first thing we mastered and applied it to one of our needs. The second mistake happened on the 2.5-foot line. That's when we mastered animals and started eating animals that were not biologically adapted to eat. The first mistake created a condition called hypo-heliosis and hyperclonic tension, and those are 2 huge contributing factors to the dark side of our behavior. The second mistake we made darkened the dark side of our behavior, which is evidenced throughout history. All philosophers and historians noticed that grain-eating cultures surpassed every other culture that ate meat in every area except 2, in their warlike tendencies and their obsession with sex. So, those are the first 3 mistakes. The fourth mistake happened on the about 10 generations ago or so, something like the 1/14 inch line, and that's the Industrial Revolution, and that's when we mastered machines and we started processing food. The 5th mistake happened when the Chemical Revolution came along, and we applied that to one of our needs, and that's getting real close to almost 8 generations ago, about the 1/28 inch of an inch line or so. So those are the 5 main mistakes we're making. They're causing most of our problems. So the reason why we have so many problems is because we're making mistakes. The follow-up question to question number 3, which was my first question initially, is, well, why are we making mistakes? And the reason is because of ignorance. We don't know we're making mistakes. Most of us are doing things that we think are okay, but they're not okay. They are wrong. They're a mistake. They're the reason why we have so many problems. So those would be the first three questions. Now we got to ask ourselves once again, well, why are we ignorant? That's the follow-up question. The follow-up question to question number 3, so the fourth question would be, why are we ignorant? Why don't we know any better? Well, there are 19 reasons why we don't know. There are 12 sources of false knowledge and self-willingness factors, and I'm not going to go into those right now. I'll save that for another story. I'm going to tell this story more than once, and I'm going to add on to it each time. It's a form of pile driving. I hope everyone can appreciate it. There's a lot of information I can flood all at once, but I'm not going to overwhelm you too much at once. So we're going to make it simple right now. If you want to stay in the garden, if you don't want to get kicked out and have problems, don't satisfy your needs. Now, what are those needs? We're not going to talk about that now. That's not open for debate at this point. But if you test an idea as time has come, you're going to have a brand new reference and you're going to be thinking about everything totally differently. Now let's take a look at the very last question. How do we solve our problems? All we have to do to solve every problem that is 100% within our control is to satisfy 2 groups of needs, and that's where and those are based on the law of cause and effect, where we have to satisfy 12 essential needs, thereby removing primary cause, and it's based on the ripple effect, where we have to satisfy 2 additional temporary needs, thereby dealing with subsequent causes and subsequent needs. So once again, all we have to do to solve every problem that is 100% within control is to satisfy 2 groups of needs. Unfortunately, most of us are not willing and able to do that, which is why I added 2 preliminary steps to the only thing we have to do, thereby perfecting a 3-step process. I've told you this before. The first step addresses the willingness issue on a temporary basis so we can see what we're missing and then be in a better position to take the second step, where we want to correct these 5 main mistakes on a permanent basis. And then once we add these 5 main mistakes onto our list of mistakes to correct, we'll finally be in a position to satisfy all 2 groups of needs, and then we'll have a better understanding of, well, really, what are those needs? So I cannot prove the specifics, and I am not trying to. I've only created a special teaching tool to prove the structure, and then I have perfected a 3-step process so that you can prove the specifics. You find out how you got to tweak this protocol. Remember, the science is easy. In most cases, that's all we have to do. And remember, the science has to do with the law of cause and effect and our anatomy. The art has to do with the ripple effect and the damage we've done to our anatomy, or to ourselves, society, and our environment. And the point here is we can't change everything overnight. So the art of solving problems is very tricky. No one has enough wisdom and knowledge to be able to know how to apply the art in every case. That's why we have to take an active role when it comes to the art. You know your body better than anyone else. Pay attention, keep track of it. It's not that complicated. Once you learn some basics, that disease is not an entity that's attacking us, it's just a bodily process. And once you understand that process, you'll be able to identify almost all your diseases and go, okay, don't work downstream unless I have to. Let's go upstream and figure out what we're doing. And the tricky part about knowing what to do is the fact that we're in Plato's cave. And what a lot of people don't understand is that there are many levels to Plato's cave. And the first level most people find is the very first level, and that's when we realize, oh my God, look what's going on. There are some sick psychopaths controlling the masses. They're the reason why we have war, crime, and violence, and disease, and everything else. They're keeping knowledge suppressed. So you've gone up one level in Plato's cave, but you're not out of Plato's cave yet. You still have further to go. It's like you've identified there's a fox guarding a hen house, and you're going around screaming to everybody, hey, there's a fox guarding a hen house. That's what we have with people like Alex Jones. Oh, there's a fox guarding a hen house. Let's tell everybody about the fox. Yeah, it's nice to go up a level, but not to sit down and focus on them. That's how we get tricked and distracted. We got to keep getting out of the cave. We got to figure out, why are we in the cave? It's simple. The very first mistake we made destroyed a nutrient that feeds one of our senses. Now we lost one of our senses. No wonder we prey upon ourselves. No wonder we compete for resources on an abundant planet. We're disconnected. So that's the most exciting thing about doing the first of my 3-step process. It will bump up your biophotons faster than anything else. I'm telling you, my friends, when you do something you've never done before, and you do it as aggressively as my first step process, you're going to crawl out of a rut you didn't even know. You're going to flush out a cesspool you didn't know you had. You're going to bump up your biophotons. You're going to reset your whole feedback system. Remember, piece 5, we have a malfunctioning survival mechanism. We can't trust ourselves anymore. But that's why we have to do this. We have to test an idea as time has come so that we can do what Aristotle would say to do. Believe only your own experience. There's no fact like a fact learned from your own life. Right now we can't do that because we can't trust our own experiences. We have a malfunctioning survival mechanism. Remember, we build up a tolerance to our mistakes. We slide up 112. We get a 103 in limbo. Now, 103s are supposed to be in the negative C box. That's a problem. But they slide up and they're represented with a box around it. And this is how we're getting tricked. We're getting pleasure from making mistakes. We don't realize that what causes a symptom at 50 or 60 was due to what we had done every day of our lives 1,000 times a year. So it's time to get excited. It's time to test an idea as time has come. It's time to do the first of my 3-step process, and you can access a 2-hour seminar I gave by clicking here. As I always say, when you guys do this, you guys are in for a treat. Long ago, Socrates said that the problem of knowledge is the key to all of our problems. Altogether, I've come up with 21 main problems of knowledge. The number one problem of knowledge is not having the knowledge we need. And the number one reason why we can't find that knowledge is because we have false knowledge in its place. And those can be represented with pieces 1 and 2 in my special teaching tool. And then there are 19 obstacles or 19 reasons why we don't know. There are 12 sources of false knowledge and 7 willingness factors. The 12 sources of false knowledge would be pieces 3 to 14, and the 7 willingness factors would be pieces 15 to 21. Piece number 3 is the number one source for false knowledge. That is the dark side of our behavior. Piece number 4 is traditions. And remember, traditions include all of our accumulated wisdom and all of our accumulated mistakes. And all the great things about our species can be reflected in the wisdom, and all of our problems and all the things we don't like about ourselves can be reflected in the mistakes. Piece number 5 is a malfunctioning survival mechanism. Remember, we built up a tolerance to our mistakes, and now we cannot trust our own feedback system. Piece number 6 is fear. And this is important because fear destroys our ability to think clearly. And being able to clearly see what is wrong is the very first step that anyone must take in order to solve any problem. In other words, we cannot change what we do not acknowledge. And fear comes from the very first mistake we made, where we destroyed a nutrient that destroys one of our senses. You see, deep down, we know something's wrong. And that's why we turn to the wrong food, our sex, our drugs, our money, our relationships. We're searching for a warm, fuzzy feeling to make us feel better, but we're looking the wrong places. Piece number 7 has to do with 6 subsequent needs that are also problems of knowledge. There are actually 10 subsequent needs from having a weak connection to everything around us, and 6 of those can be used against us. Interestingly, all of our needs can be used against us. All of our needs can be weapon systems that can be used against us. And I found a common link to solving problems that are 100% within our control, conquering nations, and controlling the masses. And that common link has to do with satisfying our needs. How do we solve problems that are 100% within our control? We satisfy our needs. How do you conquer nations? You don't let them satisfy their needs. Read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. All you have to do is enact an embargo, starve them out. How do you control the masses? Once again, it's simple. Don't let them satisfy their needs. Now, that can be done overtly, or it can be done very subtly, which is done right now. Remember, we have a very small group of people who own and control every major sector of human endeavor, so they can brainwash us and make sure that we can't figure anything out. There are, when we look at these 6 subsequent needs that are also problems of knowledge, we have our subsequent need for education. That's piece 7.1. Then we have a subsequent need for money, 7.2. 7.3 is our subsequent need for media. 7.4 is our subsequent need for government. 7.5 is our subsequent need for religion and spirituality. And 7.6 is our subsequent need for power. Now, where does our subsequent need for power come from? It comes from fear. Only fearful people have a need for power. Now we have piece number 8, and that's the wrong approach. And there are lots of ways we use the wrong approach, and I've only identified 8 of them. 8.1 is where we use the wrong approach whenever we expect systems to solve problems that only we can solve. Piece 8.2 is when we go looking for logical fallacies in systems with invalid structures. 8.3 is when our so-called experts study the anatomy and chemistry and pharmakeia for lifestyle-related problems. 8.4 is when we put the cart before the horse for a problem that's 100% within our control. In Latin, that's called monus ponus. 8.5 is when we use the wrong approach, when we... What, Sienna? What's 8.5? 8.5 is when we look at our problems individually instead of collectively. We don't use the concept of totality. 8.6 is when people don't use a parable format. If we don't tell the story in a special way, people are going to shut off their frontal lobes. 8.7 is when people only use 2 of the 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes. The problem there is that most of us are not willing to do these 2 ways to get everyone's attention. There's only 1 of 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes that enough of us are willing to do to be able to get everyone's attention. And then finally with 8.8, that's when we use the wrong approach and we focus too much attention on anything else but getting reconnected. Now, we have to pay attention to some problems. And remember, there are many levels in Plato's cave, and when most people go up the first level in Plato's cave, they go, look, there's a fox guarding the hen house, and then they focus all their attention on piece number 3, the dark side of our behavior. That's the wrong approach, because we have to go upstream and realize, well, why are we in this cave? We got to get out of Plato's cave completely. So we can use the wrong approach if we focus too much attention on anything else but getting reconnected. We can make this really simple or really, really complicated. We can either get reconnected or we can get distracted. And almost everything we do is to get distracted. Next we have piece 9. That's a combination of our neocortex and our reptilian brain. Piece 9a is our neocortex. Remember, 2 million years ago, our brains nearly doubled in size, and that happened around the 67-yard line. And then the problem with that brilliant brain of ours is that we master things we had never mastered before. And the problem with all new knowledge is that all new knowledge has the potential for evil whenever we apply the things we master to the things we need, and that's exactly what we did. And why is that a problem? Because we have this reptilian brain that can get addicted to anything that's pleasurable. Piece number 10 is a lack of continuity among those of us who understand that we're making mistakes. And we end up shooting inside the tent, so to speak. Piece number 11, we have lost our natural instincts. In other words, it shouldn't be any harder for us to figure out what to do than it is for all the other animals in nature. We shouldn't have to use our brain to figure that out. Of course, now that we've made mistakes, we've created another group of needs to satisfy. We do have to use our brains now. But if we can ever correct these mistakes, we won't need those subsequent needs anymore. And then we'll have a feedback system that will tell us what to do. But we've lost those natural instincts. So now it's a problem in knowledge because we can't even rely on our own experiences. Piece number 12 is a lack of knowledge of the cleansing reactions, because when we correct mistakes, we have cleansing reactions, and if we don't know what we're doing, we'll feel worse before we'll feel better. And many times when we do the right thing, we think we're doing the wrong thing because we're getting a negative effect, a cleansing reaction, a flu-like symptom, a headache, fever, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, coughing, sneezing, aches and pains all over the body, when all the body's doing is getting rid of accumulated toxins. Piece number 13 is where we have an emotional reaction before we have an intellectual response to it. Again, this goes back to our reptilian brain. And then 14 goes to our reptilian brain also. We are herd animals. And the problem with being a herd animal is if we're heading for a cliff, we're all going to go off the cliff. A better analogy might be that our ship is headed for an iceberg. So the herd mentality is getting us to go right straight to that iceberg, but we can use piece 14, the herd mentality, and piece 9a, our neocortex, to avoid that iceberg. We can take one of the 5 things we mastered, piece 39. Remember, there's 5 things we mastered, pieces 36 to 40. We can take the 4th thing we mastered, machines, and use that to modify what used to be the best preparation for a better way of life, piece 42. And that is what comes up with piece 41, which happens to be the first of my 3-step process. So we can use what got us in trouble, our brilliant brain, to get us out of trouble if we can modify what used to be the best preparation for a better way of life. And then if we can get enough people to do that, they will be in the first wave of heroes. They will be considered the trim tabs of society. Remember, our ship is headed for an iceberg, and we got to turn the rudder, but the rudder on a big ship has a rudder. and that's a trim tab. So what we need right now are trim tabs to society. We need rudders on the rudder to help us reach critical mass. That's the first wave of heroes. Once we reach the tipping point, once we get enough of us to do this, then the second wave of heroes will jump on board, and that's where we reach the majority. Once we reach the majority, we'll finally have one law and one law only, and that is where we have to have a minimal biophoton level. Now, if we still need leaders at that time, they will have to have an optimum biophoton level, and if there are any criminals around, they too will have to have an optimum biophoton level. Remember, the first mistake we made destroyed a nutrient that feeds one of our senses, and I coined that condition hypo-heliosis, which is an abnormally low biophoton level. It also created another condition I coined hyperclonic tension, where we have too much junk in the trunk. And these are two huge mistakes that are two huge contributing factors to the dark side of our behavior. So we can turn our ship around if we can just get enough of us to do the first of a three-step process, which brings me to the second part of the 19 obstacles, which would be those 7 willingness factors. And those pieces are 15 to 21. We start off with addictions, and then denial, and then habits, and then apathy. So 15, 16, 17, 18. Apathy is 18, but there are 10 pieces within pieces in apathy. 7 of them are in the first doorway we must go through that are keeping us from finding the knowledge we need. Piece 18.1 is our unwillingness to admit that we have false knowledge, our unwillingness to admit that we have an inaccurate belief system. And then there are 3 stages of knowledge. So there's 18.1.1, where we're unwilling to admit that we have false knowledge in place of the knowledge we need. And then there's 18.1.2, where we're unwilling to admit that we're making mistakes. And then there's 18.1.3, where we're unwilling to admit that most of our problems are within our control. And then we come to piece 18.2, and that is where we're unwilling to search for information or knowledge. And then 18.3, we're unwilling to listen to information. And 18.4 is where we're unwilling to believe the information if we're ever lucky enough to hear this information. And then the other 3 apathy factors are in the second doorway we go through. Now these 7 willingness factors strike twice, so 15 to 21 become 51 to 57. And when we get to 54, we got apathy. So we got 54.5, and that's where we're unwilling to apply what we know. And then 15.6, where we're unwilling to commit to this new experience. And then 18.7 is where we're unwilling to share this knowledge. And one of my recent epiphanies is that we don't have to believe what we know to apply it. And that's where I came up with the idea where we should test an idea as time has come. We don't have to believe it, but we can test it. And that's perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle. We got to get rid of piece 54.5, where we're unwilling to apply what we know, or we're unwilling to test an idea whose time has come. And that's where the first of my 3-step process comes into play. And then the last 3 willingness factors have to do with a fascinating personality test that I have been fortunate enough to learn that's based on quantum physics called personalysis, where we have our like to, ought to, and need to graphs. And there are 3 more willingness factors based on our desires, what we like to do, our guilt, what we think and feel we should do, and then we have emotional needs. So there are 7 willingness factors that strike twice, and interestingly, not only can they be obstacles, but they can also be facilitators if we can ever turn those obstacles into things that we are willing to do. And then they're part of our performance equation, where performance equals ableness times willingness. Ability is knowledge and skill, where skill is applied knowledge as well as mental and physical dexterity. And then we got those 7 willingness factors. But when we look at the performance equation, our ability to perform is limited by these obstacles, by these 7 willingness factors. So the easiest way to deal with all 21 problems of knowledge is to test an idea as time has come. It's to get rid of piece 54.5, and when we test an idea as time has come, we'll have a brand new reference, and that's where we'll come to the realization that none of our systems can solve our problems. That's how we get rid of piece 8.1. Remember, that's one way we use the wrong approach. We are expecting systems to solve problems that only we can solve. And then we come to that realization because we now realize that the solution to every problem that is 100% within our control lies within each and every one of us. That's why we all play a role when it comes to solving problems that are 100% within our control. Interestingly, the biggest problem with the ultimate solution to most of our problems is that very few people can wrap their brains around it or understand it until they actually do it. And then the ultimate solution will not work unless all of us do it. That's why we all play a role when it comes to solving problems that are 100% within our control. Remember, all we have to do to solve all these problems is to satisfy two groups of needs. And that's where we have to recognize the law of cause and effect and our anatomy, and we have to recognize the ripple effect and the damage we've done to ourselves, the environment, and society. So it's time to get excited. It's time to do something you've never done before. It's time that we stop gliding with the stream of the crowd. It's time to rise above the ideas of the time. It's time to go where few have gone. So I hope you can find the courage to do the first of my three-step process. Within 1 week, you'll have a light bulb moment. And that's where you realize, wow, I'm definitely on the hero's journey. I got to keep going. I want to see this to its completion. And when you do see it to its completion, that's when you'll have the aha moment. That's when you'll realize that all those systems out there that have been trying to solve your problems will never be able to solve your problems. They haven't in the past and they never will. And that's because the solution to every problem that is 100% within our control lies within each and every one of us. As I've said many times, if you guys do this, you're in for a treat. Now that we just took a closer look at the 21 main problems of knowledge, which are pieces 1 to 21, let's take a closer look at the two groups of needs we must satisfy, which are pieces 22 to 35. There are 12 essential needs based on the law of cause and effect in our anatomy, and that's where we have air, water, food, sunshine, exercise, sleep, thoughts, feelings, community, meaning we're all one. We have a need to be free of things outside our control. We need to procreate, and we need an environment to sustain us. And then we have two additional temporary needs because we made mistakes long ago and we're still making mistakes. You see, life used to be very simple long ago before the fall of mankind, which is when we made the first big mistake. In fact, we were playing in paradise and we only had 3 boxes and 4 portals. But when we made a mistake and took that brilliant brain of ours and applied it to something we needed, we altered that need. We slid down into Plato's cave, and now we start our journey off with false knowledge, and we make mistakes, and we've got all these problems that are 100% within our control. So life used to be very simple, and now it seems to be complicated, but it's not if you understand where all the boxes and pieces and portals are at. In fact, if you really want to make it simple, there's only 2 portals we have to be concerned with, and that's where we have these 21 problems of knowledge, or 19 of them. You see, 2 problems of knowledge are in the first stage of knowledge. The knowledge we're missing in the plus A box of knowledge, that's outside of our circle. But it used to be inside of our circle at one time, so it's designated with a circle with a dotted line. But our problem is we got false knowledge in its place. We're in the negative A box of false knowledge. We superimpose this into our belief system. And remember, we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. That's our biggest obstacle right there, is the false knowledge. And to help you understand this, we got 12 sources of false knowledge. And even 7 wellness factors affect our ability to find and apply the knowledge we need. So the first portal we must go through, the first doorway we must go through, is to break through the negative A plus A doorway, where we have 19 obstacles, or 12 sources of false knowledge, and 7 wellness factors. But then we also have pieces within pieces. So we can go on and on about where all these pieces are at, or we can just make it simple. Get rid of piece 54.5. That's where we test an idea as time it's come. That's where we do the first of my 3-step process. Now, you don't have to start with my first step. Remember, there are 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes, but remember, most people are not willing to do 2 of the 3 ways, so we can get everyone's attention and reach the tipping point. and this is important to understand, well, if we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. So we've got to get enough of us to do something that we can do to get everyone's attention. That's where my first step comes into play. If you don't want to do that, don't worry about it. You can take the second step, which is what most people are doing. Or you could even do what used to be the best preparation for a better way of life. Remember, there's pieces 41, 42, and 43. Those are the 3 ways to correct the 5 mistakes we're making. And the problem with 2 of these 3 ways, once again, is that most people are not willing to do it so that we'll get enough people's attention. I should just keep saying this over and over and over and over. Things will never change unless we reach the tipping point. This is not an easy thing to do because most of us are gliding with the stream of the crowd, and psychologically it's hard to break away from the herd. That's why the herd mentality piece number 14 is a problem of knowledge. And remember, the easiest way to deal with all of these problems of knowledge is simply to test an idea as time has come. And then that's not always going to be enough, because now we have these 2 additional temporary needs. So pieces 22 to 33 are the 12 essential needs. That's the first group of needs that we have to satisfy based on the law of cause and effect in our anatomy. But then we have another group of needs that we must satisfy that's based on the ripple effect and the damage we've done to ourselves, society, and the environment. Now we have this other group of needs we must satisfy. Once again, life was simple. 3 boxes, 4 portals. Now we got 6 boxes, 18 portals, and 2 groups of needs. We only had 1 group of need initially. But once we made a mistake and got kicked out of the garden, so to speak, where we now have problems within our control. Remember, my definition of paradise is not the one a lot of people think of when they think of paradise. This is nothing magical about it. This is attainable. All we have to do is simply satisfy our needs. The problem, we don't have that knowledge. The problem is if we find it, we're not willing to do it. At least 2 of the 3 ways to correct the 5 mistakes. That's why the very first of my 3-step process is an idea whose time has come. It's stronger than all the armies in the world, because the only solution to solve our problems is a bottom-up solution. I've said it before and I have to say it again. It's very difficult to wrap your brain around what I'm saying until you do it. And then if we can't get enough people to do it, things will never change. All of us have to do this and get reconnected to play our role, because we are only as strong as our weakest link. And right now we have too many weak links. And this goes back to what I believe is the most common disease and the most dangerous disease that's ever afflicted mankind since the fall of mankind. And I coined this condition hypo-heliosis. Now there's hypo-heliosis A and hypo-heliosis B. Hypo-heliosis A is on an individual level, and hypo-heliosis B is on a collective level. How does that work? Well, hypo-heliosis is an abnormally low biophoton level. Our biophotons are too low, so we don't feel one with one another. This is why we have a dark side to our behavior. We lost one of our senses. The first mistake destroys the biophotons. We lose one of our senses. We have an abnormally low biophoton level, hypo-heliosis A, and since everyone is disconnected, we have hypo-heliosis B. Now we can individually get reconnected and get rid of hypo-heliosis A, but guess what? You still got hypo-heliosis B. No man is an island. The individual cannot escape the collective. We all play a role when it comes to solving problems that are within our control, and we are only as strong as our weakest link. So the first wave of heroes, the trim tabs to society, are going to help us reach the tipping point. Once we get the rudder on the rudder to turn the rudder, we can turn our ship away from the iceberg. And then the second wave of heroes will jump on board, and it's going to be exciting then, because then things are going to change so fast we won't even believe it. Once we get enough people's attention, once 1 out of 10 of us are doing this, and everybody knows someone doing it, you'd be a fool not to do it too. And then more and more people do it. Again, once we reach the critical mass, the tipping point, the 100th monkey, things speed up so fast we can't even comprehend it. And then the third wave of heroes will finally have to come into play. Once the second wave of heroes comes in, then we'll have the majority, and then we'll have only 1 law for a golden age. The more laws there are, the more corruption there is, so it only makes sense for a golden age, only 1 law. What's that law? A minimal biophoton level. Do you have to be 100% perfect? I don't know. We have meters to test this, and it's in our own best interest to do the best we can. Every other animal does this. Why aren't we? We don't have the knowledge. We don't know what we're missing. That's why the first step is so important. It gives us a chance to see what we're missing, and it does so 10 times faster than any of the other ways. So we can make this simple, or we can make this complicated. We can get reconnected, or we can get distracted. So easiest thing to do for any one of us is simply do something we've never done before. Stop gliding with the stream of the crowd. Rise above the ideas of the time. Climb the unexplored mountain. Do something you've never done before so you can experience something that you desperately need to experience. You'll have an aha moment within a very short period of time. And that's when you come to the realization that none of these systems out there that have been trying to solve our problems will ever be able to solve our problems, because the solution to every problem that lies 100% within their control lies within each one of us. That's why we are the heroes. So the second wave of heroes, we're going to make it a law. And for whatever reason, if you don't have the ability or the willingness to do it, we'll help you. We'll put you in an institution, lock you up, and give you everything you need. Now that may sound like torture right now, but wouldn't it be nice to have someone do all this for you? Wouldn't it be great? And you won't be locked up and being tortured. You'll be able to do almost anything you want to do. You'll be able to play all day long instead of having to work all day long. Oh, how horrible can that be? I've got to be institutionalized because I can't raise my biophoton levels up. Don't have the willpower. Well, we're going to put you in a place where there's no way you can cheat. Don't have the ability. I'm kind of a little slow. How do I make that again? No problem. We'll do it for you. And once enough of us do it, I hate to even project it into what we need to do down the road, because things are going to change so fast. And now all these brilliant minds that are working for people to make money, which is an illusion, will now be used to make the world better. So it's hard to conceive just how great this world is going to be once we wake up and realize we're the enemy. We're the enemy because we're doing it to ourselves, and we're the enemy because the sickest of us wants to keep us sick. It's how almost everything is. Even a society like the Cancer Society, the bylaws in the Cancer Society guarantees they'll never find a cure for cancer. The bylaw says once you find a cure, you got to dismantle. Well, every system ever created to solve a problem doesn't want to die once it's created, so it perpetuates the problem. That's why we got to stop looking for systems to solve problems that are self-inflicted. That's why we're the heroes. So the third wave of heroes will complete the connection. The second wave will help us reach the majority and enact one law to do away with all the rest of them, and we'll start cooperating and sharing in the abundance. We'll understand the more we give, the more we receive. But none of that's going to happen unless the trim tabs get going and get this message out there. So not everyone has the spiritual ears to hear this message. Not everyone has a spiritual inclination to say, okay, my soul's telling me this is something I got to do. I'm going to accept this mission. I'm going to prove to myself that this really does work. And then you continue on the hero's journey. You gather allies, you deal with the naysayers, but most importantly, you share this message. So I sure do thank y'all for taking the time to make it this far with me. Please help me share this message. Give it a thumbs up. Share it. This needs to go viral. Everything I'm suggesting right now is for the taking for free. This isn't about making money. It's about doing away with money. We've got the wrong mentality. As long as we have the wrong mentality, things will never change either. Why do we have the wrong mentality? Hypo-heliosis. We're disconnected. We have an exchange mentality where we compete for resources on an abundant planet, when we should cooperate and share the abundance this planet has to offer. We would understand the more we give, the more we receive once we bump up our biophotons, because we'll realize that now that you're one with everything, there's only one way to make your life better. And that is to make everything around you better. And that's how we're all going to be spending our day as the true guardians that we're supposed to be on this planet. We're a disgrace to this cosmos. This is one of the few planets that have the ability to have true paradise, and we're not coming up to our potential. But damn it all to hell, that can change just like that, and I want to see it before I leave this planet. So let's make it happen. Help me share this message. I've only just begun with this message. I've been sitting on it for a long time, trying to work all the kinks out of it, and then trying to figure out how can I tell this message so that you don't shut off your frontal lobe, which is how we run to denial. Yes, I know this is a difficult message, and change can be a little scary. But we can make this really simple, or we can make it really complicated. We can get reconnected, or we can get distracted. We can take the very first step in my three-step process, or we can keep watching what I'm doing. And I'm going to tell you more pieces. I'm going to give you more knowledge, because with a strong enough why, you can bury any how. Now, I know a lot of personalities don't care about the whys. So for you guys, it's going to give you more energy. Every personality has a reason to do this, and it doesn't have to be about money. It's going to make your life better on every level. And I'll never get tired of saying this. When you guys do this, you're in for a treat. Now that I have briefly described our 12 essential needs, let's take a closer look at our 2 additional temporary needs. Our 12 essential needs are pieces 22 to 33. Our 2 additional temporary needs are pieces 34 and 35. Piece 34 are subsequent needs. Piece 35 are subsequent causes. Remember, all we have to do to solve every problem that is 100% within our control is to satisfy 2 groups of needs. The first group of needs has to do with 12 essential needs. The second group of needs has to do with these 2 additional temporary needs. The first group of needs we must satisfy, piece 34, are subsequent needs from being on the wrong path, or from making mistakes, or from being sick and disconnected, or from having hypo-heliosis, or from not having one of our senses, from losing one of our senses. And altogether, I've identified 10 subsequent needs, 6 of which are also problems of knowledge. We have pieces 34.1 to 34.10, and then pieces 7.1 to 7.6 are the same as 34.1 to 34.6. And those are those subsequent needs that are also problems of knowledge. Remember, we have a subsequent need for education and money and media, and then we have our government, and then we have religion and spirituality, and then we have a subsequent need for power. And then we get into the subsequent needs that are not problems of knowledge, although all of our needs can be used against us. And now we're looking at pieces 34.7, where we need energy. And then the next piece is an infrastructure. We need plumbing, water, and sewage. And then we're looking at 34.9, we need a subsequent need for shelter. And 34.10, we need a subsequent need for clothing. Why clothing, a subsequent need? Well, man is naturally a nude animal. Why shelter? Well, we also began in the tropics. In the tropics, we don't need a whole lot of shelter. Obviously, there are times when we need shelter. But mainly these would be subsequent needs because we're not living like we're supposed to. And then we have these subsequent causes. And these are subsequent causes that don't go away just because we remove the primary causes. And this is what's really confusing and what's really getting us in trouble. And this is the true art when it comes to solving problems. Because the science has to do with the law of cause and effect in our anatomy, and then the art has to do with the ripple effect and the damage we've done to ourselves, society, and our environment. And the important thing to understand here is we cannot change everything overnight. We may still have some temporary impairment or permanent damage that we have to deal with. And this is where the art comes into play. And this is where you play an active role in taking charge of your own health. My main job is to help you understand the science. We got to correct all of our mistakes, satisfy all of our essential needs, but most of us are not correcting 5 main mistakes. Remember, we got to add these 5 main mistakes onto our list of mistakes to correct, so we'll finally be in a position to satisfy these 2 groups of needs. And then how we satisfy the damage is individual. We do our own individual damage, and we can either support these organs if they're damaged, and hopefully they're only temporarily impaired, and that's only on a temporary basis. But if they're permanently damaged, there's always going to be a need to supplement the body or support the body for these types of problems. So all we have to do to solve every problem that's 100% within our control is to satisfy these 2 groups of needs. The essential needs are basic. They have to do with the law of cause and effect. We are living systems. We need an environment to sustain us, and then how we interact with our environment. That's what determines those needs. But if we don't do that properly, then we damage ourselves. We damage our anatomy, and certain parts of our body might not be working. So that's why we have another set of needs. And it's important to understand that just because we have these additional needs doesn't mean we don't have the other needs. Remember, we have 2 types of anatomical limitations. The science has to do with the anatomical limitations we were given at birth, and the art has to do with the anatomical limitations that come from making mistakes that have damaged ourselves, as well as society and the environment. And to illustrate my point here, and to make sure that we don't get confused and use subsequent needs as an excuse not to satisfy our essential needs. Let's say someone smokes a lot of cigarettes and they damage their lungs. Well, remember our essential needs. We need air, water, food. Right off the bat, we need air. We die within minutes. We don't have air. What if you smoke cigarettes and you damage your lungs? You still need air, right? You still need clean air, pure air. But now in addition to this, you need pure oxygen perhaps because you've damaged your lungs. The pure oxygen is an example of the art where we've damaged our body. We have another set of needs. Just because we have a subsequent need for pure oxygen does not negate the fact that we still have a primary need for pure air. So this excuse is used over and over and over, saying, well, this can't be ideal because you need this. Well, it's ideal in an ideal world. We no longer live in an ideal world. As long as we do not live in an ideal world, we're going to have another group of needs we must satisfy. And this is where it can get kind of complicated. To illustrate what I'm trying to say medically, diabetes is well known for the #1 cause of blindness in America, in neuropathy and gangrene, cutting off limbs left and right. And yet, diabetes is not a primary cause, it's a subsequent cause. So, again, there's cause and effect. There's a primary cause and a primary effect, but then there's a ripple effect, where effects can become causes, as in the causal loop, and effect can become knowledge, as in the knowledge loop. An example of the knowledge loop is, well, what's in the third stage of knowledge? What we get, that's the experience. Well, everyone knows that experience is the best teacher, and that's what ripples around. On the positive side, that's piece 114, where we complete the positive knowledge loop. On the bottom side, we complete the negative knowledge loop, that's piece 118, and that's where we perpetuate false knowledge. So that's how the ripple effect comes into play with knowledge. Now, when it comes to the causes, with diabetes especially, diabetes is now the cause of blindness, it's the cause of neuropathy, it's the cause of gangrene, and it's blamed for the cause, but it's not a primary cause, it's a subsequent cause. So what you have is primary cause, primary effect. But then there's a ripple effect where effects become causes in the causal loop. Now we have a subsequent cause. So there's a primary cause and a subsequent cause. But then there's always a ripple effect. So you got another subsequent cause, another subsequent cause. There's a bunch of subsequent causes. You see, everything we do affects us, and those effects accumulate and are reflected in the condition of all four of our current status factors. And it is the condition of our four current status factors that determines whether or not we have war, crime, violence, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, or even the common cold and the dark side of our behavior. And we don't want to concern ourselves with the details. We want to make this simple. Remember, we can either test an idea as time has come by working upstream, or we can get distracted and work downstream. Now this is important because when we deal with a subsequent cause, it's kind of like working downstream. And we have to work downstream because we can't change everything overnight. We have to immediately get rid of the money system the way it is. Remember, money is P7.2 and 34.2. We have a subsequent need for money. Money is the absolute tool of control right now. And the way it's set up, when it's based on debt-based currency, it creates bondage from the very beginning. We have become debt slaves to the system. So we can't change everything overnight. We can't go from an exchange mentality to a gift mentality, which we will eventually. So we have to do damage control. This is a classic example of the art, where we have to deal with a subsequent need. And now we got to make the best of it. We got to at least make it a debt-free currency instead of a debt-based currency. That would be the first step. And then eventually, once we reach the tipping point and we reach the critical, and we reach the majority, and all of us get reconnected, our whole mentality will change, because we'll realize that the more we give, the more we receive. It's mind-boggling that we're wasting this planet that has so much to offer, and yet we're competing for resources. And why is that? We got the wrong mentality. Why is that? We have hypo-heliosis. So there's always a simple solution to everything. We can always get distracted, and it's okay to get distracted and work downstream, but you never want to do the art without the science. And that's the key. Too many people who use the art, whether you use an herb, or acupuncture, or chiropractic medicine, or homeopathic medicine, or even allopathic medicine, can be used for the art at the right times. Although mostly it's not. It's usually in 106. But what we're talking about is piece 35. And this is a big mistake. A lot of people who understand the law of cause and effect, they don't think you can screw up the law of cause and effect, and therefore you remove primary causes. Voila, it's it. But no, they don't understand there's a ripple effect, and there is a time and a place to treat something. You got to work downstream sometimes, but you never work downstream without going upstream. So you never apply the art without the science. And then you always start with the science first, and when you do, the chances are 90% of the time you won't have to mess with the art. And then when it comes time to doing something relative to the art, sometimes the best thing is to do nothing. So the art is really an art, and it's where you play an active role in figuring out what that's going to take. But you got to start with the science. You got to start with the basic needs, our basic essential needs. That's where we're making the mistake. And that's where the first of my 3-step process comes into play. There's only 3 ways to correct these 5 mistakes, and my first step is one of those 3 ways. It's the only way enough of us will do it so we can get everyone's attention. Remember, if we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. So all you other guys that are trying to get people to do better things and you poo-poo my first step, you're an idiot, because nothing's going to change. And ultimately what you want is the same thing I want. We want to just correct these mistakes on a permanent basis. So my first step is only something we do on a temporary basis, so we can see what we're missing. That's the problem. Very few of us are in a position, practically none of us are, to evaluate what we're doing and what we need to do, because we don't think it's a fair trade. That's why you gotta see what you're missing. That's why you have to do something you've never done before on a temporary basis, so you can have an aha moment and go, oh my God, I had no idea. I crawled out of a rut I didn't even know I was in. I had no idea there was another level of existence. So what do we do from here? Well, ideally we start with the first step, and we do it for the appropriate length of time based upon our own conditions. We take it one day at a time and we see how it goes. But while we're doing that, we have to give the body everything it needs. We've got to support the organs of elimination. Remember, when we make corrections, we can have cleansing reactions. Not everyone, but many times that happens. And then we also have to support our body in case it's temporarily impaired or permanently damaged. So that's the art part of it, is how are we damaged? We got these 2 additional temporary needs now, and they're going to change as conditions change, and will even vary from one person to the other, even within one person's own lifetime. So the focus is not supposed to be on the art, although that's what we're doing. We only focus on the art, forget the science. Let me keep doing what I've been doing, and let me pop a pill and keep doing it. That's the mentality we've been brought up in, and we don't want that pop the pill mentality anymore. We got to take responsibility and realize that if we're popping pills or getting needles injected into us or taking herbs and not removing primary causes, we're doing ourselves more disservice, because we're taking away the motivation, the pain, the warning signs to tell us we're making a mistake. So it's time to get excited. It's time to find the courage to do something that very few people have done so far, but very soon all of us will be doing it. This is something that we have to do. We have to understand that all of our problems begin in childhood. Every 7-year-old child right now knows how to make the same mistakes that were taught they were taught by their parents, to guarantee that we will continue to have war, crime, and violence, and heart disease, and cancer, and diabetes, and on and on and on. Think about it. Every 7-year-old child knows how to continue on and keep making the same mistakes and have the same problems. And it only took 1 generation to go down onto the wrong path, because our ancestors made a mistake and they fell in love with it, they got addicted to it, they ran to denial, they passed it on down to the children. That's part of their tradition. So when you grow up and it's part of your traditions, you see everyone doing it, what do you think? Oh my God, that's what we're supposed to do. But the beauty of what I'm proposing is that it only takes 1 generation to get us back on the right path. All we have to do is stop teaching our children the mistakes that were taught to us. There should be a law as effective as soon as possible. Every child born as of this date will always have a minimal biophoton level. And the rest of us will figure something out to help us make it work. But then once we reach the tipping point, it's going to be a moot point, because things are going to change so fast, it's going to be amazing that we'd ever want to do anything to lower our biophotons, because that's what it's all about. Biophotons means communication. We're lacking communication. We have chaos instead. There's a reason why we struggle as a species. There's a reason why we can't find the simple mistakes we're making. And it all ties into addictions and denials and traditions and the dark side of our behavior. And we got all these problems of knowledge that make it overwhelming. Make it simple. Test an idea whose time has come. Stop teaching your children the same mistakes that were taught to us. Stop putting your kids into the school system and start homeschooling them. The number one subsequent need from being disconnected, from being sick and disconnected, that's a problem in knowledge, is our subsequent need for education. If you look at how much money we're spending for national defense and interest on our loan and bailing out the rich people, and then compare that to what we're spending on health and education for the children, we're spending less than 2% on the things that matter. Indeed, our children are our future, but the people who rule the world don't want our children to amount to anything. They want them to be worse than we are. And that's the trend we're going, isn't it? Our choices are getting worse, and so are we. We're spiraling downhill, out of control, but we could stop it in an instant. It's all within our grasp. All we have to do is get enough of us to test an idea as time has come. I plead with you, make this video go viral. Make my playlist go viral. This is all free. Everyone, my God, this can happen so fast. It's already actually been done. Bill Bright had 14 million people doing what I'm talking about. He did it within 1 year. 14 million, come on, we can do this. With the media, with the internet the way it is right now, there's no reason why within 1 year we'd already be in awe, going, oh my God, look what's happening. I don't have to go to work and work for that clown anymore. Our whole economic system is already changing. We're not using debt-based currency. We're getting rid of usury. Interestingly, we're doing the same thing Germany and Japan did, which is what caused World War II. If you want to question whether your belief system is accurate or not, think about that one for a while. What have you been told is the cause of World War II? Did you know it's because Germany and Japan were printing their own money? They got away from having someone else print their money and charge them interest for it? Doesn't even make sense. Could you print $1 million for me? You bet. Here you go. I'm the printer. And by the way, you owe me $1 million plus interest. That's what we're doing. My God, how can we stand for this nightmare slavery system we have? We got to stop playing the game. And it begins by becoming the best that we can be. It begins by satisfying all of our needs. It begins by doing something we haven't done on a temporary basis so we can see what we're missing. Remember, within 1 week you have a light bulb moment, and it's going to get your attention. And it may take you several months before you have an aha moment, and when you do, you're going to come to the realization that none of these systems out there that have been set up to solve our problems will ever be able to solve our problems, because the solution to every problem that is 100% within our control lies within each and every one of us. Remember, that's the definition of a hero. A hero is someone who can solve a problem that no one else can. If most of our problems are self-inflicted, who's the hero? You! Look in the mirror. You're the one. Yes, we're the enemy, but guess what? We're also the ones we've been waiting for. You want a hero to come into your life? You're the one. You want to be a hero to your kids? Take the first step. Don't teach your children the same mistakes that you were taught, and if you already taught it to them, tell them, oh my God, I made a mistake. I was lied to, and I lied to you, and I'm so sorry. But I don't want you to go the same direction I was going. In fact, you're going to be one of the trim tabs. You're going to be the rudder on the rudder that turns our ship away from the iceberg which we're headed toward right now. In fact, these are exciting times right now. We're on the verge of spiraling really totally out of control because of our technology and police state and how we're being surveilled and having any type of freedom whatsoever. And that's what makes us have any type of enjoyment in life, is to be free, to a point where we could finally be the guardians on this planet we were meant to be. We aren't even coming close to living up to our potential physically, mentally, emotionally, and communally. But we could. And it begins with you. So please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to me, share this everywhere. It's not about me. It's about you, your children. It's about us. It's about our species. The survival of our species depends on us waking up from this nightmare. And it can change overnight. So I can understand why people don't want to entertain our collective shadow. See, we have unwanted aspects of ourselves that Carl Jung called our shadow. We have an individual shadow and collective shadow. And our collective shadow is keeping us where we are. And most people just have a selective memory and they don't know they have an individual shadow. And when told that there might be a collective shadow that's doing what it's doing, we don't want to entertain that idea, but that's mainly because we feel helpless. I'm here to tell you, this isn't helpless. We're the Goliath here. There's one thing stronger than all the armies in the world. That's an idea as time has come. That's all it takes. We're missing the knowledge. And I could give you the knowledge, but you go, no, I'm not going to do that. Again, there's only 3 ways to correct these 5 mistakes, and I've got the one that enough of us will do to get everyone else's attention. Bill Bright already did it. He had 14 million people in 1 year. We need to do it again. Double it, triple it. If we reach the tipping point, this planet will transform into the paradise it was meant to be. And it once was, and it will be again. I know we can do it. I have no doubt whatsoever. We have the capability of doing it. It's all a matter of whether or not you are willing to be a trim tab. Are you willing to go where few have gone so far and rise above the ideas of the time? Break away from the herd? Stop gliding with the stream of the crowd? Climb that unexplored mountain? If you've made it this far, you are. Remember, there's 5 stages to the hero's journey. The first stage is, do you have the ears to hear? The spiritual ears. Second stage, do you accept the mission, the call? And then we go out and gather allies, and we got these naysayers we got to deal with. But then there's the sharing of the message. And that's what I'm asking you to do right now. It's for our species, it's for you, it's for me, it's for everyone. We're all one. Once we come to that realization, we know there's only one way to make our lives better, and that's to make everything around us better. And all we have to do is be the best that we can be. And once you do it, you're going to go, wow, if everyone went through that transformation, I know it can happen. This world is hell because most people are suffering. And it's needless. And we can change it. So it's time to get excited. It's time to do the first of my 3-step process. It's time to test an idea as time has come. And I've said this many times, and I'm going to keep saying it again. When you guys do this, you're in for a treat. Now that we just took a closer look at the first 35 out of the 281 pieces in the ultimate schematic, let's revisit the next 5 pieces, pieces 36 to 40. Remember, there are 11 main events that have drastically changed the fate of mankind, and those are piece numbers 9A, when our brains nearly doubled in size, pieces 36 to 40, these are the 5 things we mastered that we had never mastered before, and then pieces 95 to 99, which are the 5 bad applications or the 5 main mistakes that are causing most of our problems. And if we put the human existence on a football field like we did earlier, where we have 100 yards, which is like 100 meters, that's good because now it's 100%, it's easy to think in these terms. But when we have yards, there's 3 feet per yard and 12 inches per foot. So when we look at these 11 main events, the first main event happened 2 million years ago, and that would be 2/3 into our existence. And if we round up to make this simple, which we're going to, let's go to 67%. The 67-yard line is where our brains nearly doubled in size, and it kept growing. And then we went 20 more yards on this football field, another 1.2 million years before we finally mastered the very first of 5 things that we mastered. And that happened 12 yards down the road on the 99-yard line, or on the 1-yard line, 99% into our existence. And that is the first bad application. That's the fall of mankind. So for 99% of our existence, we were living in paradise. We were playing in paradise. But we made a bad application to the first thing we mastered. And then we went another 10,000 years down to the 2.5-foot line. So the 1-yard line would be 60,000 years. The 2.5-foot line is when we make the second mistake. That's 50,000 years ago. And that's when we mastered animals and we started eating food that we're not biologically adapted to eat. Then we went all the way down to the 6-inch line, another 2 feet down all the way 10,000 years ago when we had the agricultural revolution. And that's the third mistake. That's when we started eating plants that we're not biologically adapted to eat. Ah, boy. And then the last 2 mistakes are very, very, very close. The fourth mistake is when we mastered machines, the Industrial Revolution. And that happened about 10 generations ago, and it took a while before we made a bad application and started processing our food with it. But that would be approximately the 14th of an inch line. And to be honest with you, I made these calculations quite a while ago, and I need to revisit those. In fact, that's why I made a mistake when I talked about how many generations that would be. For the last mistake, I mistakenly said 8, and it should only be 4. So that's the 5th mistake. The 5th thing we mastered are chemicals. And that happened about 70 years ago, or 75 years ago rather. I used to say 3.5 generations, and now it doesn't make sense to say 3.75 generations, and yet here I am saying it. Almost 4 generations ago is what I meant to say earlier, and I misspoke and said 8, and I knew that was wrong when I said it, and I corrected it down below. But nonetheless, that happened maybe on the 1/28th of an inch line. The point here is that the very first mistake is what we have to be aware of and correct it, because that's the mistake that is referred to as the fall of mankind. That's when we fell from nature. We opted out of nature. We took something we mastered from nature and we applied it to something we needed in nature. Remember, in my simple parable, there's just two trees in the Garden of Eden, in paradise, the trees of life and the tree of knowledge. And the problem with knowledge that we acquire, like these 5 things we mastered, is with all new knowledge comes the potential for evil if we make a bad application and apply it to something we need, and that's what we did. That's how we came up with 11 main events. It all started when we became too clever for our own good. What's up, Sienna? And was able to do things we weren't able to do before. And with everything we invent or whatever, there's other applications that go on and on and on. And we went for a long time. When we first mastered that first thing, that was like 40,000 generations ago. We went 37,000 generations before someone said, hey, let's do this with it. Big mistake. So big it's referred to as the fall of mankind. Now, a lot of people are going to want to argue with this, but you have to look into this more objectively and look at, well, what did the first mistake do? It destroyed a nutrient that feeds one of our senses. It's termed a biophoton, and we store this coherent sunlight energy in the nucleus of our cells, and then the cells use that to communicate to everything else. And what we've done is we've lowered this level. According to Fritz Albert Popp, or at least what Gabriel Cousens says, according to the studies he's read, and I hope he's quoting accurately, he said that we're born at 43,000 biophotons, and that most of us are somewhere out between 1,000 and 23,000. So we start off at 43,000, we're going downhill because we're destroying the nutrient that feeds this sixth sense of ours, when we should be going up to like 83,000. And then when you do the very first of my 3-step process, it bumps it up to 114,000. Now, how would Dr. Popp know this? Because it's the #1 way they heal in Germany. Alternatively, people around the world see the value of what this first step I perfected does. And it's not just as simple as doing this. You got to make sure that you don't just remove the primary causes, which is primarily what my first step does. It's one of the 3 ways to correct these 5 mistakes, and I'll reference that if you want to learn more about that. But it's the only one that's doable by enough of us to get everyone's attention. And it's only something we do on a temporary basis, again, so we can see what we're missing. And that's the problem we have, is none of us are in a position to really evaluate what we're doing and what we need to do, because we don't know what we're missing. We don't think it's going to be a fair trade. So don't run off, Sienna. I almost lost her the other day, darn it, because I got so engrossed with this camera here. Anyway, Dr. Popp knows this to be true simply because he's over there. He has a meter. He invented this instrument in 1974 where he could measure this coherent sunlight energy that's stored in the nucleus of our cells. And it only makes sense. How are cells going to be able to communicate? That's the key word we want to remember, is communication. With biophotons, we have communications. Without communication, what do we have? Chaos. And what do we have when we have chaos? We end up with 10 subsequent needs from having a weak connection to everything. Look at government, for example. That's piece 7.3, or as a problem of knowledge. It's also 34.3, or 4 rather, 34.4 and 7.4. The 0.3 would be the media. But the government, our subsequent need for government, is there because we're out of control and we need something to help control us. But every system we create is sick because they're made up of us, so no system is going to be able to help us. And oddly enough, the ultimate answer for government is anarchy. But anarchy does not work in a sick world. And anarchy only means without leaders. Anarchy only works, or is actually what we get when we're playing in paradise. When we do the right thing, we don't need leaders. And that's what we have. It's actually, anarchy is on our to-get list. When we do what it takes, when we bump up our biophotons, we won't need leaders. We'll have anarchy. So it's not like, oh, we want to have anarchy. So people who are advocating anarchy now don't realize anarchy doesn't work in a sick world. You got to make the world healthy first. And then once you do that, that's on your to-get list. It's a common mistake a lot of people make. They look at things on our to-get list and they say, that's what we need right there. Yeah, that's what we need, but how do we get there? That's the 3rd stage. We got to go back to the 2nd stage. What are we doing? What do we got to do to make this happen? Well, that's where we got to correct these 5 main mistakes. So when we do 36 to 40, we're going to not make a bad application to one of our needs, which happens to be piece 24. And if we satisfy piece 24, it becomes piece 63. If we don't satisfy it, it becomes piece 83. And then there's 5 applications to piece 24. So now we got 83.1 to 83.5. And when I first identified those, I said, those are too important. I want to give them whole numbers. So again, before I assign numbers to everything, I automatically hid those 5 pieces and created 5 more pieces simply because they're the most important piece of the puzzle. So the 11 main events, piece 9A, brain got smart, pieces 36 to 45, things we mastered, and 95 to 99, which were 83.1 to 83.5, are 5 bad applications. That's how we get all these 103s that are within our control. And what do? We use the wrong approach. We look at our problems individually instead of collectively. Piece 8.5. Ain't that right, Sienna? Come over here and tell them it's 8.5. Sienna, come on. Come here. Yes, 8.5. We use the wrong approach. We don't want to identify the 103s. That's part of the magic act. Uh-oh, my baby got a splinter, or not a splinter, but a sticker. That's part of the magic act. Remember, cause and effect. What do? Sleight of hand. Don't look at this hand over here, rather. Look at this hand. Cause, effect, cause, effect. I'm going to name your problem based on the effect. Don't you see how they're tricking us? Don't look at the symptom unless it's life-threatening. What you want to do is go back and look at the causes. That's why I hid those 19 pieces in 103. I didn't want to show all of them. I didn't want to confuse everybody. I want to make it simple. Sienna, come back here. Come. Sienna. Come. Come back here. Come. My dog's going deaf, so she can't hear me. I got to yell at her. Come. Sienna, come. She's also going blind, so she can't even see me. Come over here. Come. She's starting to wander. This is what she did last time. Dang it. Glad I saw it this time. Sorry for that interruption. So where was I? I have no idea. Yeah, I hid those pieces for a reason. So again, when I first created my first universal numbering system, I automatically said, well, let's create these 5 pieces because they're the most important pieces. So that's how everything started. We applied 36 to 40 to 24. We slid down 109, the fall of mankind. We got the 83.1 to 83.5, which are really 95 to 99. Then we got the 103s, but now we're sick. We prey upon ourselves, and we misdirect, or the sickest of us misdirect our so-called experts to make sure they can't figure any of this out. They put them in that piece 106. Remember, they're in that doorway that's blocking the mistakes to the negative effects. So what do doctors do? They give us drugs or poisons that interfere with the body's communication process. Most drugs are fit into 2 categories. I actually created 4 categories by looking at it from outside the box. The only category that makes any sense, I don't even call it a drug, those would be hormones from other animals like insulin and thyroxine. But then you got 3 main categories. It's anti-something, and I could talk quite a while for that one, but I won't. But the other 2 are the ones we want to focus on now. These are the blockers and inhibitors. Most drugs will fall into that class, and it's like a magic act. You see, our body uses a lock and key communication system. The keys, good girl, the keys are the hormones and the enzymes. And then we have receptor sites that are like the locks. So the hormones and enzymes come in, and they turn something on the organ goes, oh, I got to do this. That's how the body communicates. Well, what do drugs do? Well, we have inhibitors that kill the keys or kill the hormones or enzymes that don't allow the body to produce those, so the body can't communicate. And if they can't find one that works, or it might be easier, or they'll do both, they'll find a blocker. Don't you go nowhere, Sienna. They'll use a blocker to occupy the receptor site. So it's like sticking something in the lock so you can't come in and put your key in. It's a magic act. Everything that is being done upon us is a trick. That's the purpose of my special teaching tool, the ultimate schematic, is to help us not get tricked and to get fooled. We're already tricking ourselves when we slide up 112 and we have a 103 in limbo, where we actually eventually get a positive effect from something that's harmful, like smoking cigarettes. Hey, I coughed my head off at first. Look, I'm not coughing anymore. It's not bad for me. That's because you got a 103 in limbo. It's going to take a while before it comes back down. Same thing happens with heart disease or cancer. So we can be tricked very easily. We trick ourselves by thinking we're seeing a positive results by making mistakes because we built a tolerance to it. That's piece 5, a malfunctioning survival mechanism. But the main thing is our so-called experts trick us by making sure we don't manifest a negative effect. So there are blockers in 106 and 105. The doctors are put in 106 to not allow a symptom to manifest. Blockers and inhibitors interfere with the body's communication process. Magic, no more negative effects. Take this drug, keep doing what you're doing. You're not doing anything wrong. It boggles my mind that we accept this tripe from people that don't study it, and then they say, well, we don't know what's causing it. 90% of the problems, we don't know the cause of it, but we know it's not this. What? You don't know the cause, but you know for sure it's not this, and yet you don't even study it, and we buy it, and we believe it. Unbelievable. So that's where part of the magic act is at. And then we have prisons and asylums in piece 105, and that's in between the thoughts and the actions. So how do you keep someone from acting out on their impure thoughts? Well, you lock them up. You don't let them take action. And it's a magic act. We don't get any negative C's, but the only way to not have a problem, that's the whole purpose of this series of videos, is to help get rid of problems that are within our control, is to work backwards and don't focus on the symptom, don't fall for the effect, name your problem on the cause. It's bad air, it's bad water, it's bad food. Oh my God, don't talk about food. Yes, that's why we want to do something we've never done before on a temporary basis. So we can correct these 5 main mistakes. And then once we do that, we'll have a brand new reference, but we can't do it until we find the knowledge. So we're stuck in this negative horizontal loop where we start our journey off in life because of traditions in the negative A box of false knowledge, and we make bad applications, we make mistakes, we end up with all these problems that are within our control. But remember, we have an inaccurate belief system. Most of us don't know that we have false knowledge in place of knowledge we need, and remember, we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. And I know I've already said this before, but it's worth pile driving it again. False knowledge is keeping us from finding the knowledge we need. When we think we already know, are you even going to listen to me? No, I don't need to listen to that fool. I already know it's against what I already believe. That's not what you know. It's only what you believe. See, our belief system can be represented in the first stage of knowledge. And I actually created this by starting off with Einstein's circle of known, if it was really his. I don't believe half the stuff Einstein did was really his. Not all of it, actually. But nonetheless, Einstein had a really clever way of explaining the Einstein circle of known. I created a very separate video for this. You can click on this link right now and watch where I explain this in more detail. But I'm going to go over it again. Einstein had whoever it was, came up with a pretty interesting way to illustrate that we had ignorance that we knew about and we didn't know about. So he had a box like this, and inside the box there was a circle that represented our knowledge. So the box represented everything we knew. And then the circle represented what we knew inside that circle. And then everything outside of our circle, inside this box, is everything we don't know. That's our ignorance. But see, you got to really understand how the tricky people rule the world are, and how they turn villains into heroes, and they turn plagiarists into heroes that weren't. So they take the heroes and vilify and make them into bad people, and they do just the opposite. But nonetheless, that's a trick. By only looking at Einstein's circle of known, it doesn't illustrate our belief system. So when I looked at Einstein's circle of known, I said, well, that doesn't illustrate our belief system. We need another box. So we need a negative A box of false knowledge. So now our belief system can be represented by circles inside the plus A box of knowledge, and a circle and the negative A box of false knowledge. That's our belief system. And the problem with our false knowledge is we superimpose and we think it's inside of our circle. So if we're looking for knowledge we don't know outside of our circle, inside the box of knowledge, and we come upon the truth, and it's in conflict with what we think we know because we've got false knowledge up in there, it's rejected, saying, well, that can't come into piece one, which is that knowledge I'm talking about, the circle, because it's in conflict with what I believe to be true. That's why it's so hard to solve our problems. So the first step is to admit that we don't know. Obviously we don't know, otherwise we wouldn't have any problems. In fact, if you just use your common sense, which most of us don't have, Emerson says society is always taken by surprise at any new level of common sense, doesn't even know it. But it's really simple common sense that we reap what we sow. It's not that complicated. So if we want to step back and look at the big picture, life is an illusion. And it's an illusion on so many levels, it's mind-boggling. We're on this negative horizontal loop. We've got the false knowledge, and the only way we can solve the problem, instead of putting blockers in 105, 106, is to make a transformative move or a vertical move, and that's where those 19 obstacles are at, the 12 sources of false knowledge and 7 wilderness factors. But then there's 21 pieces within pieces. That's how it comes up to 40. And then there are 8 duplications. The 7 wilderness factors strike twice, and so does the number 1 source for false knowledge. And then there are 2 more pieces that represent things that are outside of control, where we have limited control, and things outside of control where we have no control whatsoever. And those are 2 black boxes. So if you're looking for a flaw in in the ultimate schematic, my special teaching tool, there they are. I intentionally put these 2 black boxes in there just so you can say, I found the flaw. Okay, fine, take them out. They're just here for illustrative purposes. They're inconsequential. What we're talking about here, for example, would be like bad luck in one and carelessness in another. So again, just throw them out if you don't like it. The main point, though, is that we have to make a vertical move. We got to go through 2 doorways to solve our problems. We got to recognize that we're doing it to ourselves. It's because our brain became too clever for our own good. We master things we'd never mastered before. And then there's that battle between the brains. Remember, piece 9 has 9A and B. 9A is the neocortex that got really smart. But then we have 9B. Don't go anywhere, Santa. The 9B, which would be our reptilian brain, which can get addicted to anything that's pleasurable. So that's what got us in trouble. For whatever reason, whether it is because we were curious or because we had to survive, we are opportunistic for when survival comes into play. So maybe we did it by mistake, but for some reason we haven't been able to realize it's a mistake because it's become part of who we are. Think about it. It only takes a generation or 2 before we can pass on a bad mistake, and then people grow up with it and they don't realize it, and you don't want to change traditions. It's what everyone did. Again, this explains why this is such a hard thing to do. So there's an urgency to this message. We got to reach the tipping point, because if we don't reach the tipping point, things will never change. It's really that simple. Good girl. There are a lot of ways to correct these mistakes. I identified 3 main ways. 2 of them, not enough people are willing to do. And oddly enough, a lot of people in there say, well, we shouldn't do number 3. We shouldn't even do that. They don't realize it. They just haven't put enough thought into this to realize that things will never change unless we reach the tipping point. And the way most of us are doing it now, it's not working. In fact, it was tried hundreds of years ago, and with much more success. 5,000 people would come and tend to listen to people talk. Of course, now with the internet, we can expand that to even more. But nonetheless, we're not congregating like we used to. Of course, they didn't have the internet back then, so maybe it's a moot point. Sienna, don't go anywhere. Sienna, hey, don't start wandering off. Good girl. So, what is it time for? It's time to test an idea as time has come. It's time to go where few have gone so far. But that's going to change real quick. Because you're a trim tab. If you've been listening to me this long, you are a trim tab to society. You're going to be the rudder on the rudder that keeps our ship from hitting that iceberg. Or the herd from going off the cliff. In fact, that's what happened when we mastered the very first thing. We used it to herd animals off the cliff. That's how we mastered animals initially. We'd burn down, we'd set the forest on fire, and boom, all the animals would go running off the cliff. And that's what we're doing. We're running off the cliff. We're headed for an iceberg. Never before in time of our existence has there been a need for a vast majority of us to duplicate what Bill Bright had already done. He had 14 million people doing this. We can expand that way beyond it. Once you do it, you realize, oh my God, there really is something to it. And I know because I've done it over 1,100 days in the last 23 years. I know from personal experience, and I've coached thousands of people. And I know when I say you guys are in for a treat, I know what I mean. I'm coming from my heart. I've done it too many times, and I do it once a year just to remind myself it's more fun than what I was doing. And you'd think I'd know that by now, but I always love what I'm doing, just like everyone else does. So please find the courage to test an idea as time has come. And when you do, you'll look back and say, damn, that was a treat. Well, now let's pan over and show you my Sienna. I had this problem last time when I tried to pan down there. I didn't have the camera set up. I didn't even know if she was in it. There's my baby. Sienna, little girl. Sienna. Say hi to the camera. Sienna. Poor baby's losing her hearing. Sienna. See if I can detach myself quickly from this tripod. Sienna. Say hi to the internet. Come here, girl. Sienna. Can you hear me, girl? There's my sweeters. Look at my sweeters. She is so sweet, aren't you, girl? Aren't you the best thing ever? Aren't you? Huh? You can just look at her. Can't you tell she's sweet? I am so sweet. It's because my daddy loves me. Ain't that right, baby? Who loves you? Sienna, girl. Baby sweeters. Say bye. Come on, smile for the audience. She always has a smile on. Hey, your dog is smiling. Yeah, I know. We're both happy. Bye-bye. Now that we have briefly looked at the first 40 pieces out of the 281 pieces that I've identified in the ultimate schematic, let's go on and look at the next 5 pieces, which would be pieces 41 to 45. That's where we have 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes and 2 forms of consequences. There is the knowledge of the consequences and there is the experience of the consequences. Remember, that's the most important piece of the puzzle. And what we want to do, as I mentioned before, is complete the positive knowledge loop and make the 41-45 connection. 41 is the only one of 3 ways to correct 5 mistakes that enough of us are going to be willing to do so we can get everyone's attention and reach the tipping point. Remember, things will never change unless we reach the tipping point. So everyone who understands that we're making these mistakes and wants us to accomplish in the end to correct these 5 mistakes, we must understand that most people aren't willing to do what we have to take. Or most of us aren't willing to do what we got to do. And that would be piece 43, where we actually correct these 5 main mistakes. Remember, the 5 main mistakes have to do with 5 things we mastered. First thing we mastered is fire. I've only alluded to that one time so far, and I've been vague about it for a reason. Second thing we mastered were animals, then plants, then machines, then chemicals. So how do we correct those 5 mistakes? Well, we don't apply fire to our food. We don't cook our food. We don't eat animals we're not biologically adapted to eat. We don't eat plants we're not biologically adapted to eat. We don't process our foods, and we don't use chemicals in any way. We don't grow our food on artificial fertilizers, spray them with pesticides, use artificial fertilizers, the GMOs, everything else that goes with it. And a lot of people are doing that. They're seeing great results, but the problem with that approach is that we'll never reach the tipping point if that's the way we go. Not enough of us are willing to do that so we can get everyone's attention. Now, what used to be the best preparation for a better way of life was piece 42. And that's a water fast. That corrects these 5 mistakes Best way to stop eating the wrong food is stop eating it all. However, most people are afraid to death of water fasting. They don't know anything about it, and they're not willing to do that either. Not to mention the fact that water fasting can be quite dangerous nowadays because of the fifth thing we mastered. That's the chemical revolution. There are so many chemicals in our environment that are now inside of us that if we don't have the proper nutrients like glutathione, we cannot complete a two-phase process where our liver neutralizes and eliminates the toxins that we get from the environment. So we don't get that nutrient. We don't get any glutathione when we do a water fast. So our liver can't process these toxins that don't belong inside of us. That's why what we need to do is modify what used to be the best preparation for a better way of life. That's where we take piece 9A. Remember that brilliant brain of ours? That's what allowed us to master 5 things we never mastered before. And we're going to take the 4th thing we mastered, that's piece 39, and we're going to use that to modify a water fast. And that's called a juice fast. Or I like to put a positive spin on it, call it a juice feast, or it's just a juice diet or a solid food vacation. It's a way of correcting these 5 main mistakes, and it's only on a temporary basis so we can see what we're missing. And the great thing about doing a juice fast or a juice feast or a juice diet or a solid food vacation where we pound down a bunch of juice inside of us is that we see results about 10 times faster. We're not hungry. Our energy level skyrockets. And we see big improvements, and that's what gives us the big motivation. It wasn't but maybe a decade ago or so when I saw Dr. Dean Ornish on PBS, where he was explaining how our whole concept of change itself has changed, where we no longer think the baby step approach is the right way. Because he's found out that when you take a bigger approach, you get bigger results, and that's bigger motivation. But we can take Dean Ornish's program and even make it more aggressive and see even bigger results, and that's what I'm talking about with the very first of my 3-step process. And the great thing about it is that it's been done before. And we did really well within 1 year. We got up to 14 million people. Of course, that's not going to reach the tipping point. That's not 10% of the population. And plus, YouTube was not available back then. So now we have better media. We have a better way of communicating this information. And we got to join the hero's journey. We got to take the first step of my 3-step process and test an idea as time has come, so we can accept the mission and find out that this really is the ultimate solution for most of our problems. And remember, there's 2 groups of needs we must satisfy. So this only corrects these 5 mistakes, which has to do with the first group of needs. So a big complaint people have is, well, we can't go to this raw vegan diet, piece 43, an organic raw vegan diet, because it doesn't satisfy all of our needs. And I say, you're right. That's our ideal diet in an ideal world, but we no longer live in an ideal world. Remember, there's a ripple effect. We've damaged ourselves, society, and the environment. Now we have another group of needs we must satisfy. We have subsequent causes that don't go away just because we remove the primary causes and get rid of and correct these 5 main mistakes. So this is something that takes a little bit of thought process to understand. You got to think about this for a while and realize, well, why do we have these other group of needs? I've explained this before about a person who smokes cigarettes all the time and they damage their lungs. And they still need pure air, but now they might need pure oxygen. The fact that they have another group of needs based on the art, based on the ripple effect, based on the damage we've done, and now they have a need for pure air does not negate the fact they still need pure oxygen. So if we've damaged ourselves and we're not able to make certain level 2 nutrients, then we might need to support our body and provide those nutrients, whether it's insulin or thyroxine or DHA or B12 or vitamin D or taurine or even cholesterol. My God, cholesterol is a precursor to all of our hormones. So if our liver is compromised and we're not making cholesterol, we're really in bad shape. But you always got to go back to the first cause and realize that there's a ripple effect. And so when you satisfy the 12 essential needs, which includes correcting these 5 mistakes, you're removing primary causes. But then there's the art of solving problems, and that's where we have to do damage control based on everything else. And it's not just what we've done to our body, it's what we've done to our society. Remember, we live in a sick world where the sickest of us are controlling the masses. And the only way to defeat this aspect of them is to realize that they're part of us. They're a reflection of us. I explained this before when I go into the common links and common flaws between the Zeitgeist movement, the Thrive movement, and conspiracy theorists. They all see that there's a fox guard in the hen house, and we don't want to spend too much attention to them, but we don't want to ignore them either. Yes, revolution comes from not focusing all of our attention attacking what's attacking us. We have to find the zeal in us, but we also have to realize that it doesn't go down to 0%. We still have to devote some attention and work downstream and deal with damage control. So one of the first things we have to do is take away the absolute tool of control of these people, and that's money. That's piece 7.2 and 34.2. It's a subsequent need because we're disconnected because we have hypo-heliosis, and it's one of the 6 subsequent needs that are also problems of knowledge. And money is a tool that's used to control us, and we're all debt slaves right now, and very few people truly understand how abundant this planet is. We've been tricked into thinking there's a scarcity, and that's one of the biggest tricks of all. Remember, the people who rule the world are con artists, they're psychopaths, they're con artists, they're masters of illusion, they're magicians, they're masters of misdirection. It's all about keeping us distracted. And there's a very simple solution to all of this. We don't even want to focus on piece number 3 exclusively and say this is what we got to do. Yes, we have to do that downstream damage control, but we got to also go upstream. So some of you guys are good at the damage control, fine, but when the others of us go upstream to realize that, hey, to make this whole thing work, we got to figure out why we have these problems. And it turns out that the psychopaths who rule the world are a reflection of us. Remember, our behavior can be put on a bell-shaped curve, just like our IQ can be put in a bell-shaped curve, where we have 2% people above 130 and are geniuses, and 2% that are below 80 and are mentally challenged. The rest of us are in the middle of the bell. Well, if we don't like what we got on the edge of the bell, we can't cut off the edges of the bell. We got saints on one end and we got psychopaths on the other. Well, it doesn't do any good to go, oh my God, look at the edge of the bell, it's got psychopaths. Well, the only way to get rid of those is to realize that we ultimately all have to change. We got to change the center of the bell. That's why we all play a role when it comes to solving problems that are 100% within our control. Yes, we have to do damage control. Yes, we gotta take away the tools they're using to control us, which includes the economic system the way it is, based on debt-based currency instead of debt-free currency. But ultimately, we got to discard that completely, because once money doesn't exist, then there's nothing can be used to control other systems that are then controlled to use us. Right now, we're very easily controlled because of money, and we have to work downstream. Do what Germany and Japan did, which got them in trouble, and all the powers of be attacked them and go, oh, look, they're bad, look what they're doing. And it turns out they just broke away from this money system. And they proved to the world that when we don't let the richest of us siphon off all of our profits, there's so much abundance, it's mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. We should not have to work more than 3 hours a week collectively to do what we need to do to provide our basic needs. And then what would the rest of us be doing? We'd be spending our day making everything around us better. Why? Because we don't have hypo-heliosis anymore. We feel connected to everything around us, and now we know that's the only way we can make our lives better, is by making everything around us better. It's a very simple concept that's difficult to comprehend because it doesn't exist now, but once it happens, we don't have to think about it any more than I have to think about blocking out that sun that's shining in my face right now, or listening to the birds in the background, or feeling the breeze on my skin, or smelling the honeysuckles over here. Our sixth sense is not something we have to think about, and that's the beauty about this message, is we don't have to worry about people who have a difficult time understanding what we're talking about. If they just do this, if we can get them to do it, they'll feel the connection, and then it's an automatic. We'll understand the more I give, the more I receive, because everyone will be doing it. Think of what potential would be on this planet if we all shared everything we did. It's mind-boggling. There'd be so much abundance that we would, as the guardians of this planet, we would turn this place into a paradise. It'd be unbelievable landscape everywhere. That's what we'd be doing all day long. Other people who are gifted in other areas, they'd be entertaining us or whatever. And as far as education, we'd be teaching everybody all the time. Every little 5 or 6 year old child would have already gone to where they wanted to be to learn what appealed to them. And by 5 or 6 years of age, they'll know everything they need to know to continue on for the rest of their life, because it's not that complicated once you understand how to interact with our environment the right way. We're not doing that. We're not interacting with our environment the right way. We're making poor lifestyle choices. We're making bad applications. And that's why we have so many problems. Most of us are doing things that we think are okay and they're not okay. And we have way too many references that support this belief system. So there's only one way to challenge all these belief systems. And that is to test an idea as time has come. That's where the first of this 3-step process comes into play. That's where we do piece 41. And when we do that, we will go from having the knowledge of the consequences, piece 44, which is what I've been trying to do in this video series, to the experience of the consequences, which is piece 45, which is what happens when you take the first step or the second step or the third step. But the problem with the second step is that, yes, it's 3 times faster than the first step. The first step is 10 times faster than the third step. So a lot of people are saying, hey, let's do the third step, let's eat a raw vegan diet. But then we can do that 10 times faster on a juice fast. And then a water fast is 3 times faster than that, but for every day you water fast, you need 1 day to recuperate, so it's really not the same thing. We don't quite get a 3-time effect. It's more like a 2-time effect. But nonetheless, it doesn't allow us to maintain any type of existence. When you do a water fast, you have to take a vacation from life, and that's just not doable by enough of us. Most of us don't have that luxury to take a vacation from our financial responsibilities and our family responsibilities. Whereas if we modify that water fast and do a juice fast or a juice feast, we can do this while we're working, and actually our performance will be better. And even if we have to get up an hour earlier to make all this happen, we'll be so much more productive and have so much more energy throughout this process that it's more than a fair trade. Sienna, don't go wandering off. Come back here. Good girl. So yes, we can do the first of my 3-step process and have that experience of the consequences, and then you'll finally be in a position to challenge all those old references. This is what we're all up against. None of us are in a position to evaluate what we're doing and what we need to do because we don't know what we're missing. In fact, most of us are in no position at all, or we're not qualified to even have an opinion on this. And yet we all know what people say about opinions and body parts, how everyone has one. What I'm talking about, my friend, in this video series is extremely profound. It's extremely simple, but many times we don't have this knowledge. And to have an epiphany, you got to have the knowledge, you got to contemplate it on it. I know for some of you, all I'm doing is giving you the knowledge now. You haven't even had a chance to contemplate on it. That's why you have to listen to this over and over and over, and then maybe you'll catch it, you'll figure out what I'm saying in a day or two, or a year or two, who knows. But it doesn't happen unless you can see what you're missing. That's why we have to have a brand new reference. You can choose any one of these 3 steps, 41, 42, or 43, but I'm going to tell you right now, the easiest way to do it, and the only way that's going to work to get enough people's attention, is piece 41. Why do I say that? Because everyone knows about juicing. And it's not a big step to say, okay, I'm going to drink nothing but juice. And I've done this over 1,100 days in the last 23 years on 138 different occasions. I document every bit of it, everything coming in, everything going out. And I'm telling you, when you document everything that's coming out of you and you see the filth that comes out of you, it's not hard to understand why we suffer as a species. Remember that I coined 2 conditions that come from making these mistakes: hypo-heliosis and hypercolonic tension. The hypercolonic tension is that filth I'm talking about that's going to come out of you when you drink nothing but juices. Within 1 week you'll have a light bulb moment. Why? Because you're still pooping. Within 3 months you'll have an aha moment. Why? Because virtually every problem you had went away, and that's where you realize that all those systems that were trying to solve your problems were never going to be able to solve your problems because they hadn't yet, and they never will, because you know now that all those problems lie within you. All of our problems lie within each and every one of us. Yes, we're the enemy because we're doing it to ourselves, and we're preying upon ourselves, but we're also the ones that we've been waiting for. We can be the heroes because by definition, and I've said it again, I'm going to bore you one more time, a hero is someone who can solve a problem, our problems that no one else can solve. Well, if most of our problems are self-inflicted, who is the hero? We'll go run in the kitchen and look in our bathroom and look in the mirror, and there you go. There's the hero. It's you. And it begins by simply testing an idea as time has come. Simply do the first of my 3-step process. And when you do 41, you'll complete the positive knowledge loop. When you do 41, you correct the 5 main mistakes. That's 75 to 79. The 5 main mistakes are 95 to 99. And if you get 95 to 99, you get 103, a problem within your control. But if we do 75 to 79, we get 101. Hey, now we're going back to paradise, which is a place where we don't have problems within our control. This is where we have unlimited potential. And then there's that ripple effect where effects become causes. That's in the causal loop, that's 113. And effects become knowledge, as in the knowledge loop, that's 114. It's the 114 that becomes the 45. And so what we need to do is get rid of piece 54.5. That means we have to be willing to test an idea as time has come. Then we take the first of my 3-step process, or you can take the 2nd step or the 3rd step. I don't care. Just take one of these steps. But if you want to make it easy on yourself, do the juice feast, or the juice fast, the juice diet, and within a very short period of time, you'll have a brand new reference that will challenge everything that you thought was true in your past. Now, in addition to de-indoctrination, or detoxification, we got to do de-indoctrination. It's very hard to filter out all that false knowledge that we've superimposed into our belief system. Remember, our belief system can be illustrated in the first stage of knowledge, where knowledge is acquired. We have Einstein's circle of known in the plus A box, the knowledge with a circle inside of it representing the knowledge we have. And then there's a circle outside that circle, which is piece number 1, has a dotted line. That represents knowledge that used to be inside our circle, but we lost it. and it has to do with 5 false beliefs. Now I'm getting into the next 5 steps. These are pieces 46 to 50. So pieces 36 to 40 are the 5 things we mastered. Pieces 46 to 50 are now in the negative A box of false knowledge. And this is our false beliefs, thinking that what we're doing is okay. What's piece 46? It's a false belief that cooking food is something that's good. In fact, I find it quite ironic that the fall of mankind is referred to by the rest of us as an art. That shows you how sick we are and how much in denial we are. We call the number one sin, or the original sin, the fall of mankind, an art, not realizing that it's a sin, meaning it's a mistake. It alters our food on every level. And I'm only sharing one of the main things it alters. It destroys 100% those biophotons. The 5th mistake, the chemicals, destroys them by 83%. So organic food has 5 times the biophotons as does conventional food. Once again, the owners of the world are masters of illusion. They're magicians. It's magic. Look, I'm going to grow your food with these fancy chemicals, NPK, 3 minerals. Hey, we need 92 minerals in there, don't we? Some of them don't need all of them, but still, shouldn't all those minerals be in there? No, we just need these 3, and then it's magic. It looks like food, but it's not food because it has 83% less of the biophotons we need that can help us understand that we're all one. And then if we had that mentality, no one would join what's called a Progerian class and join the police force and an army and be part of the cog in the wheel that's keeping us where we are. Remember, it's our collective shadow that's keeping us where we are. All of us have a shadow. All of us have a selective memory. And Carl Jung called that our shadow. It's those unwanted aspects of our lives that we don't want to remember because we'd go crazy otherwise. That's what denial is. It's a defense mechanism, so we literally don't go crazy. So we run to denial to protect our pleasures, but we run to denial to deny the fact that we have a sick society where psychopaths are running the asylum. So this is an important piece of the puzzle to understand. And the only way to defeat that piece of the puzzle is to realize they're a reflection of us. We all play a role. We all got to change. And we can't get the masses to do that unless we reach the tipping point. All we have to do is do the first of my 3-step process and share your experience. It's one thing to accept the mission, the 2nd stage of the hero's journey, but then you have to go out and gather allies and deal with all the naysayers, the obstacles, the people who don't understand this. They're not in the first wave, or for whatever reason they're psychopaths or useful idiots that are part of this resistance to keep this message from surfacing. So if they're not part of that, then it doesn't matter. The point here is to go to the next stage, and that's where we share the message. So yes, you got to have the ears to hear the message. Yes, you have to accept the mission and test it out and prove it to yourself. Yes, you have to gather allies, and you're going to have to deal with these people, whether they know what they're doing, if they're useful idiots, or they're shields, or if they just aren't ready and it threatens what they're doing. Whatever the reason, that's part of the struggle we go through while we share our message. Don't let them deflate your enthusiasm. It's one of the main reasons why this message isn't getting out, because when people do this, they get real excited and they share it, and then they run into these people that just burst your bubble. Don't let that happen. We have to be strong and continue on the hero's journey and share this message. So I want to emphasize how important my message is, and that has nothing to do with me personally. I'm offering all of my information for free. I have a seminar that explains all of it. I'm going to soon have a website that will have all these pieces to the puzzle. So if you want more details, fine. You can look at my 6-box system, the ultimate schematic. You can see where all the pieces are. You'll have a list of what all the pieces mean. You'll have files that back up those pieces. If we take piece number 3, the dark side of our behavior, I've got to update that section. I have at least over 300 files. Some of them are over 1,000 pages. A lot of them are 700, 800 pages. And then you can look at the details for yourself. But don't get tricked into looking for logical fallacies before you first look for the invalid structures. To make all this knowledge easier to accept, what we have to do is exclude the impossible like Sherlock Holmes would do. when we use my 6-box system to realize that all the systems in charge in 106 and 105 are guilty of modus ponens, or putting the cart before the horse for a problem that's within our control, we eliminate those, and with them we eliminate all the objections that go with it, saying that what I'm saying is true. And there's nothing I can really say to help convince you that what I'm saying is true, except you can test an idea as time has come. So once again, it's time to test an idea as time has come, and when you do, you know what I'm going to say. Yes, that's right. You guys are in for a treat. Now that we've taken a closer look at pieces 41 to 45 and a brief look at pieces 46 to 50, let's take a closer look at pieces 46 to 50. Remember, pieces 46 to 50 are relative to pieces 36 to 40. And pieces 36 to 40 are those 5 things we mastered. And when we think of these 5 things we mastered, I want y'all to think of magic. So in that way, when we look at pieces 46 to 50, we can think of them as black magic. By definition, black magic is magic that is used against us. And that's what's happening to us. Remember, most of us start our journey off in life on the wrong path, in Plato's cave, with false knowledge, pieces 46 to 50, because of our traditions, piece 4. And that's what allows us to make the 5 main mistakes, pieces 95 to 99, that are causing most of our problems in 103. So when we look at the negative C box of problems, when we look at the negative effects, when we look at the 3rd stage of knowledge, on the wrong path or in Plato's cave, we find hundreds of thousands of problems. Most of them are in piece 103. The amount of problems that are outside of control, where we have limited control or no control whatsoever, is a very small percentage of our problems. The vast majority of them are in 103, and then the vast majority of those tie back to 95 to 99. But remember, 95 to 99 ties back to 83.1 to 83.5. And 83 is only one of our 12 essential needs, and our 12 essential needs is only one of our 2 groups of needs we must satisfy. So, if we have a problem that's a 103, we don't want to focus on the 103s unless they're life-threatening. In most cases, we always want to work backwards, and that's the purpose of my special teaching tool, the ultimate schematic, is so that we can look at our problems and realize, well, we may not have the wisdom right now to know the difference between a 103 and 104, and in fact, that's what's happening. We don't. But if we do that and we look back, we go, okay, well, there's a simple solution for problems that are within our control, because they tie back to what we do. So if we have those type of problems, we can change what we do. But the problems, we have an inaccurate belief system. Most of us don't know that we have false knowledge in the 1st stage of knowledge. Most of us don't know that we're making mistakes in the 2nd stage of knowledge. And most of us don't know that most of our problems are 100% within our control in the 3rd stage of knowledge. So that's how our journey starts, with pieces 46 to 50. And they're relative to pieces 36 to 40, 5 things we mastered. The first thing we mastered, fire. Then animals, then plants, then machines, and then chemicals. And with all new knowledge comes the potential for evil. How? I already told you. It comes when we make a bad application. That's what we did. There's certain things we are not supposed to do with things we master. And one of them is to alter our needs. Because we need those needs, and when we alter the needs, what happens to us? We get altered. That's what all of our illnesses and ill behaviors are for. They're part of our feedback system. Diseases are part of our feedback system. They are not due to inappropriate signals, as many of our doctors are taught as they're being educated. It's a good way to teach our doctors. That way they can negate the law of cause and effect and not feel bad about treating the symptom. It boggles my mind that doctors can't wake up to this fact, but it's not hard to understand when you understand we've got all these subsequent needs from being disconnected. One of them is our subsequent need for money, which is not the same thing as greed. Greed comes from piece number 3, the dark side of our behavior. Our subsequent need for money means that we need money to survive. And what's happened is we put these so-called experts in a position where they're now some of the richest and most respected, but they're not getting any results, and they're part of the problem. They should wake up and say, look, we know we're not getting results. We know that we're putting the cart before the horse. We know we're guilty of modus ponens. We know this is not the solution. And we don't have any right having a monopoly on treating symptoms in the first place, because that industry should not exist. There should not be a treatment peddling industry for a problem that's within our control. So what happens when it comes to problems? Most of us don't have the wisdom to know the difference. How can we gain that wisdom? It's simple. Test an idea as time has come. Do something you've never done before, and guess what? Most of those problems are going to go away, if not every one of them. It's too simple. And the beauty of it all is you can prove it to yourself. So every time you watch one of my videos, the whole point of my video is to get you to test an idea as time has come. And if you're not ready, then keep listening, because I'm going to tell more pieces, and it doesn't mean you still can't start this. And see for yourself really what you're missing. The problem that all of us have who haven't done this yet is we don't know what we're missing. And more than likely, we're not going to think it's a fair trade to give up what we perceive as giving us pleasure, unknowing that some of our short-term pleasures are actually causing most of our long-term pain. But most importantly, it's making us disconnected. Remember, the most dangerous disease and the most common disease that's ever afflicted mankind since the fall of mankind is a condition I coined hypo-heliosis. This is one of the biggest obstacles we have. And when it comes to solving problems, we have to understand the obstacles. We don't want to put all of our attention on the obstacle, which is what a lot of people do, and that's what a lot of people are trying to get us to do. Remember how controlled opposition works. It's really hard to know who to trust. That's why we have to trust our own selves by testing an idea as time has come. Isn't it interesting how it always comes back to testing an idea as time has come? Of course it is, because that's the only thing that we can do to finally understand that life has been an illusion on so many levels that we have no idea. And I've talked about Plato's cave many times and how we go up many levels and how most people just go up one level, and that's as far as the people making sure we stay in this cave want us to go. They don't mind us coming up one level. You see, it isn't so much what we know, it's what we do with what we know. That's why controlled opposition will change the subject every day. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to do this and do it and do it and do it and then get it done. No, this is a problem, and this is a problem, and this is a problem, and this is a problem. Oh my God, we're overwhelmed. I feel helpless. That's where we're getting most of our information. So take advantage of people that are giving us this information and realizing there's always going to be something they're going to try to trick you with. And there are a lot of people who fail a certain test that proves that they are not in our best interest. But if we learn to understand what to recognize, we can take advantage of what they're giving us and have a better understanding of what it's going to take to do damage control. Again, we can't ignore the obstacles that we have, but we definitely have to work downstream. We have to figure out how to transition to where we need to be, because we can't change everything overnight. It's really that simple. So we need to work downstream, we need to work upstream. We never work downstream unless we're working upstream. And if we work upstream, we might not need to work downstream. So we always start upstream, and that's where we go. That's where we remove the primary causes. That's where we correct 5 main mistakes. And there are 3 ways to correct those 5 mistakes. And do whichever one you feel good about doing. And if you don't think someone else should do another way, why would it matter to you if they're eventually going to get to where you are, hopefully anyway? Most people can't make the transition and correct the mistakes we need to make without doing something that's much faster, much easier. And again, that's where the very first step of my 3-step process comes into play. I've done this over 1,100 days. I have a lot of personal experience. I've coached thousands of people. I have a lot of professional experience. And if you guys could just listen to the average phone call I have with my students as I'm helping them go through this process, I know what I'm going to ask them on a certain day, and I know what they're going to say on a certain day, and it's so exciting. I know that it's going to be the most exciting thing we've ever done. Remember, there are 5 things we mastered, 5 bad applications. We shouldn't be cooking our food. We shouldn't be eating animals that we're not biologically adapted to eat. We shouldn't be eating plants we're not biologically adapted to eat. We shouldn't be processing our food. We shouldn't be using chemicals. Now, the thing about, don't you go anywhere, Sienna. The thing about these mistakes is that it's part of our tradition. It goes against our traditions. Remember, we cannot learn anything we think we already know. That's the problem, the false knowledge. We think, oh, what do you mean we can't get everything we need if we don't eat meat? Well, what we have to understand is that there are about a dozen anatomical characteristics that determine where all animals fit relative to how they interact with their environment, especially what they eat. We've got carnivores and omnivores and herbivores and grainivores and frugivores. If you look at our anatomy, we have the exact same anatomy as all the plant eaters. Of all the anatomy you look at the most convincing evidence, and that would be the length of our intestines. Our intestines are 10 times the length of our body, approximately, like all other plant eaters are, and the reason is because we have to process fiber. All animals that are carnivorous and omnivorous have intestines that are 3 times the length of the body, no exception. So we are not omnivores, we are not carnivores. The biggest problem is we're consuming food that has a very slow bowel transit time. And that's how we end up creating hypercolonic tension. Even if we're not accumulating old stuff yet, we still have maybe 12 to 15 meals backed up in our intestines, because you're eating flesh every day. It's going to take 3 days for that to go through you. If you're eating food you're biologically adapted to eat, it has the right bowel transit time. By the next day, you've got everything out of you. Otherwise, if you're eating the wrong food, it has a slower bowel transit time. You're going to have meals backing up, and now that's seeping back into the body. And that's the most convincing reason why we shouldn't be eating those foods. Also, the enzymes, the teeth. Again, there's a dozen anatomical characteristics that clearly tell us that we're not supposed to be eating meat in any shape or form. And then when it comes to grains, hold your hat here for you vegetarians. This is the reason why so many of you vegetarians aren't healthy. Don't you go anywhere, Sienna, come, get back here. Is because, well, you're cooking food also, but you're also eating plant foods you're not biologically adapted to eat. We're not grainivores. There's only one group of animals on this planet that are true grainivores. And these are the birds, and they got special organs like crops and gizzards to digest grains. Sienna, get back here. Even cows are not supposed to eat grains. And yet, what are we feeding our cows? Corn and soy. This is why disease is on the increase, because that changes their whole fat structure. Now we're getting too many omega-6s. Now most people in America are getting a 20-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. It should be more like 1-to-1, maybe 4-to-1. Sienna, get back here, come. So if you're going to eat an animal, make sure the animal's eating what it's supposed to eat, and then you won't have as many problems. But if you don't want to have any problems yourself, stop eating food you're not biologically adapted to eat. But then you may say, well, wait a second, where do I get this and where do I get that? It's only in the animals. And that's a good point, because I mentioned before that we have 2 anatomical limitations. The first one is based on what we're born with. We're given these dozen or so anatomical characteristics, and we're limited to interacting with our environment that way. But then we damage our body, and there's a lot of ways we can damage our body. And one is by eating food that provides us a nutrient that we would normally not get in our regular diet, but our bodies know how to get it. It's a level 2 nutrient. But if we're given those level 2 nutrients in the food directly, our body can atrophy and not make it anymore. And this can happen over the course of a long period of time, which has happened to people of Norwegian ancestry. That they've been eating so much fish, they're getting so much DHA that their bodies no longer can make DHA. Well, the same thing can happen to us in a lifetime. We can damage our body, and now we have another group of needs. And this is where it gets a little confusing. The first group of needs we need is based on the law of cause and effect. We're subject to the law of cause and effect. We have an anatomy that has to interact with the environment. There's limitations with that group of needs. But then we damage ourselves and society and environment. Our environment is sterile. We've damaged our organs. Sienna, get back here. So because of this damage, we're not able to make certain level 2 nutrients. We might abuse our body in other ways, damage our lungs, damage our liver, not be able to make certain level 2 nutrients, or may not be able to just consume pure air and get everything we need. Classic example of having 2 groups of needs, where our subsequent need for pure oxygen does not supersede or negate our need for pure air. The same thing for a plant-based diet. We have an essential need to consume a plant-based diet based on our anatomical limitations, but because we may have damaged our body, we may have additional temporary needs where we might not be making certain level 2 nutrients. There's a lot of ways we can damage our liver. If it doesn't make any cholesterol, for example, that's a precursor to all of our other hormones. I mentioned this the other day, so if we don't get any cholesterol, if our body's not making cholesterol, we don't produce the hormones, and we have all types of symptoms. But the problem that we have to focus on first is the 5 main mistakes. We got to correct those. We got to go upstream. So yes, we got to work downstream. We got to treat the symptoms, and we have to support our body if the body's not able to make certain level 2 nutrients. We have to convert our debt-based economy into a debt-free economy. We got to take back the airways. There's so many things we got to correct based on what has been done to us. We got to start eliminating most of these laws, because the more laws we have, the more corruption there is. In 2012, January alone, we passed 40,000 laws. My God, 40,000 laws in just 1 month alone. So I believe there's a very simple way to get back to the garden. Only have one law. And that one law is we all must have a minimal biophoton level. And every animal strives to do that but us, unless they're exposed to magic. Again, when we put our food in fire. It's magic. It's edible now. Oh, when we grow our food on artificial fertilizers, oh, it looks like food, but it's not. We lose 83% of the biophotons when food's grown on artificial fertilizers and sprayed with pesticides. And we lose 100% of our biophotons when we cook our food. Number one reason why you shouldn't cook your food is because we lose our biophotons. And that's what feeds one of our senses, and now we are senseless. One of our senses are so low that we prey upon ourselves. We don't understand a simple mentality that we should give and share what we got because there's an abundance. Why are we hoarding? Something's wrong with our mentality. Things will never change unless we change our mentality. There's only one way to change our mentality, and that's to flush out that cesspool that we have inside of us and bump up those biophotons. Get rid of the two major contributing factors to the dark side of our behavior, and once enough of us do that, we'll all start doing that, and our whole species will start acting like what it's supposed to do. So that's the most important thing we have to understand when it comes to piece 40. Again, processed foods is a no-brainer. We know we shouldn't eat processed foods. Western Price proved how processed foods in one generation created what he called prenatal nutritional injury, when the natives were fed processed foods for the first time and the babies were born with malformed palates and had behavioral problems. The same thing happened with Pottinger's cats. Made cats eat the same food, one the way they would eat it in nature, and the other the way we eat it. They cooked this food for them. Same thing happens to the cats. They had behavioral problems, they had diseases, they had an identity crisis, they role reversal, the female cats became aggressive, even some of the male cats became homosexual. What Dr. Pottinger proved, that when you alter the food, it alters the cat. They had birth defects, they never had other birth defects. Another thing Pottinger proved is that you couldn't grow anything from the waste matter from the cats that ate cooked food. And then when it comes to the waste matter from the cats that ate the food that wasn't altered, he could grow anything on that, or it could grow like you would expect things to grow. So Pottinger proved in the 1930s that when you alter the food with cats, you create every problem we have, every disease we have, every behavioral problem we have, birth defects. Price proved that the processed foods created birth defects, or not so much birth defects, but malformed palates. But he noticed when he came to America that he noticed that most of the prisoners and the juvenile delinquents all had these malformed palates, meaning that the mother was eating crappy food, the baby developed a crappy brain that had a hard time dealing with society. So the Twinkie defense is actually a pretty good one, believe it or not, if the mother ate it. So when you look at all of our problems, you have to realize that everything in our society depends upon the condition of our four current status factors. And then the condition of our four current status factors depends upon, number one, our genetics, and that's the quality of the sperm and the egg that we get from our father and our mother. And then it depends on our constitution, and this is what comes from our mother. It's what she did while we were in her womb and while we're on her tit, if we were lucky enough to be there. So Western Price proved in the 1930s that when these natives that were eating a healthy diet and had perfect teeth started eating processed foods in one generation, what the mother ate was reflected in the baby's brain, in its mouth, in its whole head. The body didn't develop properly. This is a no-brainer. If you're going to build a body, what do we build it out of? What's the main building block? It's our food. You are what you eat, right? So why can't we figure that out? So those are the first two things we need. We need genetics and then constitution. And then the next thing we have would be the environment. And then after that would be our lifestyle choices, the things we do. So the condition of our four current status factors depends upon our genetics, our constitution, the environment, but most importantly, the most important factor depends on the things we do, especially the things we eat. But this is not a magic bullet. You got to look at all those factors. Remember, there are two groups of needs. We have to satisfy all of them. But when you look back and try to figure out, well, what's the source of most of our problems, they can be traced back to these 5 main mistakes based on 5 things we mastered, all because our brains nearly doubled in size nearly 2 million years ago. And those are the 11 main events that have drastically changed the fate of mankind. So what's the solution? It's simple. We have to take responsibility. We have to look in the mirror. That's like being in Plato's cave and looking back into the fire. Oh God, it hurts, doesn't it? It hurts to look in the mirror and take responsibility and possibly change and give up something we think is giving us pleasure. But remember, life is an illusion. What we perceive as giving us pleasure is what's causing us our pain. How do you take control? How do you take back control? Well, there's a reason why fasting is mentioned 74 times in the Bible, and that's because when we stop indulging in our mistakes, we take back control. So that's what the first step of my 3-step process does. It allows you to take control and not indulge in those things that are going to end up ruining your life and perhaps make our species extinct. Indeed, we are like a cancer on this planet, but we don't have to be. If we can get enough of us to test an idea as time has come, reach the tipping point, wake everyone else up, this world will transform so fast you won't believe it. So hopefully you'll be in the first wave of heroes. Hopefully you are a trim tab to society and you're doing this right now. And if you are, congratulations. Keep on the hero's journey. Get out there and get some more allies. Figure out the best way to deal with these obstacles, the people that are going to burst your bubble. And by all means share this message. And everyone you see, make sure you tell them, when you do this, you're in for a treat. Now that we've taken a closer look at the first 50 pieces out of the 281 pieces in the ultimate schematic, let's take a look at the next 10 pieces, pieces 51 to 60. And those pieces are in the second doorway that we must go through. Remember, there are 2 doorways we must go to solve all of our problems that are 100% within our control. The first doorway is so we can find the knowledge we need. The second doorway is so we can apply the knowledge we need. And in that doorway are obstacles. The 7 wellness factors that were in the first doorway strike twice. So the 15 to 21 is also in the second doorway, and I assign them whole numbers because they're so important. And those are pieces 51 to 57. And then piece 58 is a problem of knowledge where we have no control whatsoever, like bad luck. 59 would be a problem of knowledge where we have limited control, like carelessness. And then piece 60 would be all of those sources of false knowledge that also strike twice. And I didn't assign them whole numbers, and I even have not even assigned them sub numbers, which I could. Remember, there's millions of pieces within this puzzle. I could say, okay, let me add 14 more pieces onto this and make it 295 pieces. But that, where do we stop? The point here is I didn't assign them whole numbers for a reason. They're not as important as the willingness factors, because the willingness factors not only can strike twice, but our belief system, and therefore our performance can actually be enhanced if we can turn those obstacles where we're unwilling into facilitators where we are willing. So if you want to take a quick look at the performance equation, to digress for a moment, our performance equals our plus C and minus C equals 22 to 35, that's our knowledge, limited by or divided by pieces 2 to 21, as well as pieces 51 to 60, and then that's going to be multiplied by pieces 51 to 57, because we can turn those obstacles into facilitators. But right now, we have to make it through the doorway first, and when we do, we get into the second stage of knowledge. So when we look at the first 50 pieces, those were in the first stage of knowledge, or at least 31 of them were, and then 19 were in the first doorway. And then there's 21 pieces within pieces, that's why there's 40 obstacles altogether. And this can get real complicated if we want to, but let's make it simple. The best way to deal with all these obstacles is to test an idea as time has come. So if you've already done that, then this isn't of any concern to you. But if you're still debating on whether or not this is something you want to do, and you want to try to objectively evaluate all this, take a look at what you're up against. You have all these sources of false knowledge that are making you think a certain way, and these willingness factors that are also determining your performance. So the 2 doorways we have to go through will get us to the second stage of knowledge. And now the pieces that I showed you so far will come into the second stage. But before I talk about how those pieces go to the second stage, let me tell you about 19 more pieces that I hid in piece number 2. Remember, I hid 57 pieces altogether. I've assigned whole numbers 120, but there's really 177 pieces, so there's 57 pieces that are actually part of this schematic where everything fits. But I hid those 57 pieces. The first 19 are in piece number 2. That's where I hid the 14 needs, 12 and 2. And then also I hid pieces 41 to 43, the 3 ways we correct 5 mistakes. And pieces 44 and 45, the 2 forms of consequences, the knowledge and the experience. But I didn't hide the 5 things we mastered because they're too important. Just like pieces 83.1 to 83.5 were too important to list as subnumbers, and I gave them whole numbers 95 to 99. Pieces 46 to 50 are also too important, and I set them out. Remember, when I finally assigned whole numbers or a universal numbering system to my schematic, I waited till I felt like I had all the pieces I didn't want to look at hidden in puzzles or hidden in pieces or sub-puzzles. And that way I'd only identify the most important pieces, so it'd be simpler. And that's what I did. So that's why I identified pieces 46 to 50, especially piece 46, because that's where we look at the fall of mankind and we think it's an art. Of all the false beliefs we have, this is the one that's killing us. And it's the hardest one to wrap our brain around. And again, how do you deal with that? Well, that's where you test an idea's time has come. So we start off with 46 to 50, we get the 95 to 99, that gets us to 103, which these are problems that are within our control. When we look at the negative seed box of problems, in order to work backwards to solve our problems, the first thing we do is we make it simple. We say our problems are either 100% within our control or they're not 100% within our control. 103 are problems that are 100% within our control. And then when you look at all those problems, all together, the 103s are the hugest number. And we don't want to look at the details. That's why my 6-box system can make things simple. There are hundreds of thousands of pieces within 103. Let's not look at any of them. And I've actually only hid 19 pieces that trace back to what's in the second stage of knowledge, which has to do with the 14 needs and the 5 things we mastered. Especially if we made bad applications, that's how we get on the 103. So we work backwards, we make it simple, knowing that we can solve problems if they're 103s, if they're within our control, by changing what we do, our lifestyle choices. But we can't do that unless we have the right knowledge. And that's where piece 46 is getting us in trouble, as well as 46 to 50. Remember, we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. And that's the problem with false knowledge. The first step is to admit we don't know. And the only way to even overcome that is to test an idea as time has come. Again, I keep coming back to this. Hopefully you're already doing this. And if you're doing it, you're probably not aggravated by me repeating myself over and over and over, because you have to understand, and I'm sure you do by now, that the people we want to do this the most are the ones that might have to hear this 50 times. That's why we pile drive and pile drive and pile drive and tell it over and over and over, over and over and over. That's why every video I'm doing right now is to help you understand this is something you have to do. And in the meantime, each video I do, I'll give you more information to help motivate you. In this video, we're understanding that our willingness factors strike twice. Denial strikes twice. I love that. I've never heard anyone ever say it before, except when I heard it myself say it. But all these willingness factors strike twice. And the best way to overcome all of them is apathy. Remember, we have addictions, denial, habits, and apathy. That would be 15, 16, 17, 18. But then when we go to the second doorway, we have 51, 52, 53, 54. So it's 18 and 54. 18.1 to 18.4, and then 54.5 to 55.7. So what else is in that second doorway? We've already talked about it, but to remind yourself, the big one is piece 54.5. That's where we're unwilling to apply what we know. But the best thing about this is you don't have to believe anything. Just test an idea as time has come. And then 54.6 is where we're unwilling to commit to this long term. And then 54.7 is where we're unwilling to share this information. Remember, this is the most important piece of the hero's journey. Once we're on the hero's journey, we can't do anything unless we get on the hero's journey. And I realize not everyone's ready for this message. So if you're not ready, don't worry about it. Hopefully we'll reach the tipping point before you know it, and you can be the second wave of heroes. And if you don't make it then, don't worry, you'll got it made, because then we'll do everything for you. And even though you're not going to want to do it, you're going to be glad you did once you did it. Now that sounds pretty extreme, but who knows how things are going to finally be once we get to that point. I can only just try to imagine how we'll deal with that in the future. And I've already said this before, is that it's almost a waste of time to project too much in the future, because there's no telling how we're going to start functioning as a species once we correct these simple mistakes and get reconnected. The biggest problem is we're disconnected and we're always being distracted. So how are you going to overcome all of this? There's only one way to deal with being distracted. That's get reconnected. How do you do that? That's the first of my 3-step process. And it does it faster than any other method. And allows you to see a light bulb moment within a week, an aha moment within several months. And that's the most important part of my whole message, is you have to have a brand new reference in order to challenge all those references that support your current belief system, your current way of life. Most of us have been taught the wrong things, and it's part of who we are. It's not easy to break away from the stream of the crowd. That's why we just glide along. But not all of us are in the middle of the stream. So I'm mainly appealing to the stragglers on the side that are ready to jump off and go the other direction. You guys are the trim tabs. Right now, as I'm speaking as of today, that's who I'm talking to now. 2 years down the road, as you're listening to this video, hopefully we've already made it. But if not, we still need trim tabs. If we haven't reached the tipping point, we still have to get there. So this is something we have to. It's an ongoing grassroots movement. It's a bottom-up solution. We are sick individually. Every system is sick, so there's no system that can solve our problems. It's got to be a bottom-up. It will never be a top-down. And the only thing we can do is to drastically change the condition of our 4 current status factors. And that's what satisfying 2 groups of needs will do. When you satisfy 2 groups of needs, you'll become the best that you can be. And then you'll finally have the right mentality where you realize, my gosh, I feel one with everything now. I really want everyone else to feel this good because I can understand what would happen if they did. It pains me to watch some of you people crawling around in pain. I see your pain. You can barely walk, some of you guys. Our dietary mistakes are reflected in our flesh. We can't hide from our mistakes. Look at the vast majority of the elderly in America. You guys are failures at living. And you did it ignorantly. You didn't know any better. You did the best you could, but you didn't know any better. Now I'm offering you knowledge so you can know better. And I wish you guys would be the trim tabs, but I know that you're going to be the heavy wave of second waves that's going to jump on board once we finally reach the tipping point. In fact, every one of you guys are going to jump on board. I know it. But right now, the very small percentage of you guys seem to be willing. Prove me wrong. If you guys change, you'll look better than your children. I swear to God. You'll look better, you'll feel better, you'll act better. Everyone that sees you two together will go, oh my God, what did Grandpa do? Look at Grandma, my God. Didn't know she had cheekbones. Didn't know her skin could glow. I'm telling you, my friends, most of our problems are 100% within our control. And the solution is a lot simpler than we think. So I could continue on and talk about more pieces at this time. We've looked at the first 60 pieces. I guess I might as well go ahead and show what happens in the second stage of knowledge. I already alluded to it a moment ago. I was thinking about saving that for the next one, but let's talk about it. Remember, we have 12 essential needs and 2 additional temporary needs pieces, 22 to 35. When we satisfy those needs, we become 61 to 74. And then there are 5 things we mastered, 36 to 40. And when we make good applications, we get 75 to 79. Those 19 pieces I condensed into 101. So now we have 101.61 to 101.74, or actually 79, when you include the 5 good applications. And I did that on purpose, so it'd be simple when we look at the C box. We only have within our control and outside of control. And remember, when we look at the problems we have, there are hundreds of thousands of problems in 103, and that's how we get lost down the rabbit hole. The devil's in the details. Yeah, that's what they want us to do. Look for logical fallacies in systems with invalid structures. Don't put the cart before the horse. Don't be guilty of Mona's ponens. Work backwards. Take responsibility and realize most of your problems are within your control. And why would you not want to test this out and prove it to yourself? Because if we don't satisfy these needs, we slide down and get those. We get 81 to 94. And if we make 5 bad applications, or any bad applications, or the first 5 at least, we get 95 to 99. And then that's what's responsible for most of our 103s. So I explained in the ultimate schematic how we have gateways and wormholes and doorways. 6 doorways, 4 gateways. The wormholes are interesting. I've already talked about 4 of the wormholes. That's where we have a causal loop and a knowledge loop on the wrong path and on the right path. So there's 2 and 2. And it took me several years before I realized, well, wait a second, there's 4 more wormholes. And that's because I realized we slide up to 112 and we get a 103 in limbo. That's where we are making a mistake, but we get a positive effect from it. This is one of the ways we really get tricked. But when we have a ripple effect there, when the effect becomes a cause, it doesn't become a positive cause, it goes back down. So now we get 119 and 120. 119 is a negative causal loop by going up 112, and this is what I call a false interpretation. And then we also perpetuate false knowledge because we think we're doing something right. We're getting a positive effect, but it perpetuates false knowledge, so that's 120. There's 8 wormholes, pieces 113 to 120. There's 113 and 114. If we look at And actually, I guess I got to go backwards if I'm going from the third stage, the second stage to the first stage. Remember, there's a ripple effect. Whatever we get has a cause and effect. And we get the 113, 114, 150, 150, and then the 115, 116 is where we slide down. And then anytime we have a negative effect, it's always going to be a 115 down in here. But then the 116, we can learn from our mistakes. So 116, interesting, comes back up and goes back to the plus A box of knowledge. So there are two ways we can get a 45. 114 and 116. 114 is when we complete the positive knowledge loop. We satisfy our needs. We get a 101. And then that ripples back around as 114. And that's what feeds 45, the experience of the consequences. But then we have 116 also. Because we can correct mistakes and still have a negative effect. We can have a cleansing reaction, which is actually where 108 comes into play, where we go from plus C to negative C. But we can also slide down 111, and then we have a negative effect. But we can learn from our mistakes. If we don't satisfy our needs, or even slide down 109, if we know we did it, we can slide down 109, end up with a negative effect, but now it doesn't ripple back around and perpetuate false knowledge unless we just don't know that we're not satisfying one of our needs. So that's piece 116. So once again, 113, 114, then we slide down 115, or 115, 116, and then on the negative side we have a negative 117, 118, and we slide up and we come back down 119, 120. Sounds complicated, and if you want to try to understand what I'm saying better, look at the ultimate schematic. I did a video on this. A good way to explain this is if I had a sheet of paper, as I also show in the ultimate schematic video. And if I took that paper and I rolled it around, you can see how the effects on one side would come back and circle around and hook up to the beliefs, which is how they claim, or that's how they try to describe a wormhole in space, where space folds upon itself and that's supposed to create a wormhole. Well, think of my ultimate schematic on a sheet of paper like a globe, and then roll the edges around like a cone, just like you could roll the map around, and all of a sudden you got the two places connecting. That's kind of how the causal loop and the knowledge loop works. I'm trying to work on how to illustrate that, and I'm not having any success myself. I've requested the help from friends, and hopefully they can come through on this. And the best thing of all, you don't have to understand it. I'm only offering this information so that you can understand the structure in which I'm trying to come from. Remember, when you use logic, there are two criterion that must be met. The contents, the specifics, the details must be accurate. There's no logical fallacies in those, and that's the train. But then the structure must be valid. And the structure is the tracks, and the tracks is always one way. That's why I'm using two sequential ordered pairs in my special teaching tool, which is in effect 3 stages of knowledge. That way we can make sure we don't get tricked and take the first step in the wrong direction. So what's the best way not to get tricked? Test an idea as time has come. Do the first of my 3-step process so you can see what you're missing, and then be in a better position to try to put a dent in these 5 main mistakes, and good luck. And do we have to correct every one of them to the nth degree and be perfect? I don't know. It kind of seems foolish not to. And perhaps that's a question we must ask once enough of us do it, that everyone's doing it, and then we'd be like every other animal that wouldn't think twice about getting the best it could do. Imagine wildebeest coming out into a pasture and they all run to the bad grass or go to the bad water. Doesn't make sense, does it? Every other species on this planet strives to thrive, or thrives to strive, and we're not doing that. Mainly because we don't know what we're missing. Mainly because society attacks early when the individuals help us. We start our journey off in life with false knowledge because of our traditions. And the best way to deal with that problem of knowledge is the same way to deal with every other problem of knowledge. Test an idea as time has come. So once again, if you're on the hero's journey, if you've already done this, keep gathering data, become well versed in knowing how to explain this with people. Share my special teaching tool to help show the flaws in the systems that are in charge. Once we can exclude the impossible, which is all the systems in charge, then we got to exclude their bullshit reasoning why what I'm trying to say is not true. And then once you do it, you'll be able to believe only your own experience. So get excited, document what you do, journal everything, share it on YouTube, and tell everybody, I'm in for a treat if you do it too, or you're in for a treat if you do it too. I'm already having a treat. It's time for you too. Now that we've taken a closer look at the 281 pieces that I've identified in the ultimate schematic, I'd like to take a step back and look at the big picture. because this can be quite overwhelming. I mean, 281 pieces, all this terminology we never heard of before. Does it have to be this complicated? You know the answer to that question. Of course not. We can make this really simple on ourselves if we just do something we've never done before. So every time you hear me talking, I'm always trying to get you guys to do the same thing. And if you've come this far, the next step is to do it. That's all there is left, to do it. And in all honesty, it's real difficult to understand what I'm trying to say until you actually have this brand new reference. It's what I believe to be probably the most important part of my message. There's no other way to challenge all the old references that we have that support our current belief system, our current way of life. If you recall, I started off giving my overall perspective, and I said there's something seriously wrong with us. There's something wrong with our health, our behavior, our mentality, but most importantly our belief system, because that's what sets everything else up in motion. We have false knowledge in place of the knowledge we need, and we don't even know that. And we cannot learn anything when we think we already know. So hopefully by now you've given this a try and you're doing it, and now you're wanting to know, well, what else? Well, study Joseph Campbell. There are 5 stages on the hero's journey. The first stage is to have the ears to hear. The second stage is to see if it's true and try it out. And let me tell you, there are a lot of people who claim they have the hero's journey, or they're the hero, and they're not. Because the biggest problem we face as a species is that we're all suffering needlessly. All these problems are self-inflicted. And by definition, a hero is a person who can solve a problem or problems that no one else can solve. So if all of most of our problems are self-inflicted, that means that we are the hero. So that's the hero's journey. And you really can't understand that until you take the first of my 3-step process. And when you do that, you get the brand new reference, and then you're going to be motivated to keep on the hero's journey. And the third stage is to gather allies, gather data, find like minds, but be careful of piece number 3, who knows that the best way to control the opposition is to lead it themselves. So you're going to be infiltrated. You're going to have people that are going to attack you from all sides for many different reasons. That's the obstacles. That's the 4th stage. This is what molds your character and helps you be a true hero. And the most important part about having the right character as a hero is to share the message. We got to reach the tipping point, otherwise things will never change. We've got the wrong mentality. Things will never change unless we reach the tipping point, change our mentality so we can get rid of the dark side of our behavior and no longer be sick and so easily controlled. So there's a very simple message. There's a very simple solution. There's a very simple reason why we suffer so much. Sienna, did you just bring those mosquitoes over with me? My God, you got them all over you, sweeters. Oh, gosh. I just shaved her, so she's vulnerable right now. And there was so much noise out here earlier, I couldn't start when I wanted to, and now I don't even know if I can see my face in the picture or not. I lost my son, darn it. So I may have to cut this one short. If you're on the hero's journey, don't get discouraged. Get excited about what you've gone through. Journal everything you did. Document everything you did. Tell your story and your message in your own way. And yes, some of us are going to struggle. It's not going to be as pleasant for some of us as it is others. But if you do it the right way, if you do everything you're supposed to do, and give your body everything it needs, and support all your organs of elimination, and support your body in case it's temporarily impaired or permanently damaged. This is going to be one of the most exciting experiences of your entire life, especially if you're older and you're really sick, because those sicknesses are going to go away. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the ones that are killing all of us: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, arthritis. There's a simple solution for all of these illnesses. Depression, hepatitis C, you name it. 99% of our illnesses are nothing but part of our feedback system telling us we're making mistakes. And we've been hoodwinked, bamboozled by the sickest of us. The worst of us got the worst of us by sucking us into a system that doesn't work early on in life, making us dependent on it, thinking that was the solution, not realizing that there are no systems that can solve lifestyle-related problems. There are no chemical solutions for lifestyle-related problems. Arthritis, diabetes. I've coached so many people And when you drink nothing but vegetable juice for several months, take it one day at a time, but when you do that for several months, 3 or 4 months sometimes you might have to, guess what? The arthritis goes away. The diabetes goes away almost immediately if it's type 2. I'm amazed at how fast diabetes works when we simply clean up our system. With type 2 diabetes, the biggest problem with insulin resistance has to do with the condition of our body. And you see, when we don't eat the right foods, we plug up our intestines. There's too much junk in the trunk. Our colons become more like cesspools instead of fast-moving sewage systems. That then feeds the blood, so now the blood is dirty. The blood gets filtered by the kidneys, and now the kidneys get dirty. And the kidneys are also supposed to filter the lymph fluids, so now the lymph fluids don't get clean and they get dirty. When the lymph fluids get dirty, every cell has a cell membrane is monitoring the rest of the body, and every cell is like us. Food needs to come in, waste matter needs to come out. By way of osmotic flow, blood brings in the food. The waste matter is supposed to go out into the lymph fluid, and all of our cells are surrounded by lymph fluid, and that's supposed to take it down to the kidneys and then out the body. But when the kidneys get dirty because the blood is dirty, because the colon is dirty, then the lymph fluids get dirty, and guess what the cells do? The cell membrane goes, oh my God, there's more crap out there than there is in me. And even though it's building up in my place, I'm inside a body, and I know that if the body dies, so will I, so I'll sacrifice myself if I have to. Well, this is the biggest problem with type 2 diabetes. It isn't so much the fat in the blood that's causing the problem in addition to this, but mainly the cells can't get rid of the waste matter. And when cells can't get rid of the waste matter, what happens to the sugar? It can't go from the blood into the cells. So you have high blood sugar. So how do you get rid of type 2 diabetes? It's simple. Clean out your colon. And then what that will do is, of course, will clean your blood. But then what we do with the colon is by way of a retrograde flow, we actually turn the colon into a fontanel, and it becomes a primary source for sucking the garbage from the lymph fluid from the rest of the body. It's supposed to go to the kidneys, but the body has a clever way of getting rid of toxins in alternative forms, and we call those fontanels. The body uses the skin many times when the body can't get rid of toxins. The first place it goes to is usually the sinuses, which is why we think all these colds are contagious, because we detox through the sinuses. Interestingly, if you detox through the lungs, doctors call that pneumonia. Now you have to think about this one, my friends, because pneumonia is maybe the 6th or 7th leading cause of death in America. And people mainly die because they go to the so-called experts that don't know what's going on, and they feed them and give them drugs, and that's what kills them. When the person who came with the doctor that came up with the 7 stages of disease, which isn't perfect, but it sure is a lot better than what everyone else is using, that doctor, John Tilden, saw more pneumonia patients than any other doctor, and he never lost one patient because he knew that people were extremely constipated. The major channel of elimination wasn't working, so the body looked for alternative channels of elimination, and it chose the lungs. That's pneumonia. See, doctors only name our problems based on where the garbage is at and what stage it's in. So we don't want to name the symptom. Remember, we don't want to name the 103s. We want to go back and see what are we doing. Well, we're doing things that create slow bowel transit time. We get constipated. That our major channels don't work, so it goes elsewhere. So all your skin conditions, measles and hives, mumps, all these things is when the body's using the skin as alternative channel of elimination, a fontanel. Well, what we want to do when we're been abusing our body for decades, and all of a sudden we want to clean ourselves out, we drink nothing but vegetable juice for a certain period of time. We drastically change the ionic pressure in our colon, and it becomes like a fontanel and does the job the kidneys normally would have done. But remember, the kidneys are compromised. They're dirty because the blood is dirty, because the colon is dirty. So how do you get sugar into the cells? You clean out the colon. It cleans out the blood and the lymph fluids, and when the lymph fluids get cleaned, the cells go, hallelujah, I can get rid of my garbage, and hey, come on in, sugar. That's how simple it is. I know I've coached too many people. Within 1 week, they're usually completely off their medication, if not day one. But we don't know how you're going to respond, so obviously when you make dietary changes, you monitor your blood glucose and see how you do. But I've coached too many people, and this works so quick with everyone, it's mind-boggling. Now, type 2 is a whole different story, but you still will benefit by doing what you need to do to get clean on the inside. So when you go on a long juice cleanse, a juice fast, or a juice feast, there are several things you're going to do. One is you're going to flush out a cesspool that you have inside your intestines. I had a 20-pound cesspool in me at a time in life when I only had 5.8% body fat. 9 pounds of fat, write a book on weight loss. I can prove mathematically how to lose fat, and then I stumbled upon juice fasting. I go, well, that sounds pretty interesting. Let me try it. First week, I lost 5 pounds. I'm going, oh my God, what am I doing? Is this what I'm thinking is happening to me? I'm losing all this stuff in my colon. So I went the distance the 7th time, and I documented 45 pounds of stuff that came out of me, lost 20 pounds on the scale. Now we all have this cesspool inside of us, and when we get rid of it, the rest of the body will cleanse itself out, and it may take longer to clean, let's say to clean the uric acid out of your joints than it does to clean the stuff out of your colon. You might go 2 months and have your colon completely squeaky clean. Believe it or not, it took me 3 months. It might take you 6 months. I mean, 2 months, you never know. It might take 2 weeks if you're really clean, but I doubt it. But anyway, it may take 60 days to clean out the colon, but you may still have junk everywhere in the body. So if you leave the colon empty, the body will work more efficient at pulling garbage everywhere else out. And then within another 30, 40 days, you'll be arthritis free. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Well, all you have to do is take 1 week out of your life to see if it's true, and you'll have a light bulb moment. You'll see this stuff coming out of you. So we want to flush out the waste matter. The next thing we want to do is we want to bump up the biophotons. Now, Dr. Pop says that when we do a juice fast or a juice feast, we bump up our biophotons to 114,000. Remember, we're born at 43,000. A junk food eater could be as low as 1,000. An organic vegan up to 23,000. Organic is important. Why? Because it has 5 times the biophotons as does conventional food. And then the vegetarians are eating more fruits and vegetables. But the vegetarians are making 3 big mistakes. Most of them, they're still eating processed foods, a lot of fake foods like tofu. They're still eating plant foods they're not biologically adapted to eat. And most of them know not to make the 5th mistake and use chemicals, but most of them are still polluting their food with fire. Big mistake. So when we do a long, extended, properly conducted juice feast, based on how long you need to go, you'll flush out that cesspool, you bump up the biophotons, because you're supposed to be at 83,000, but on a juice fast you go to 114. So it bumps up the biophotons faster than anything else. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to reset our feedback system. Remember, piece number 5 is a malfunctioning survival mechanism. That's how we slide up 112 and get a 103 in limbo. And that's how we end up with a false interpretation, because if we don't know we're making the mistake and we get a positive effect, we think it's good, but yet it's coming back only reinforcing or perpetuating false knowledge. In that case, that's piece 120 I explained in the last video. And I know the wormholes get a little confusing, especially if you don't see everything in front of you. So go to the ultimate schematic so you can see what the ultimate schematic looks like to get a better idea of how all this fits together at any time you're not sure. So those are the 3 main things we want to accomplish on this juice feast. By doing so, we've successfully completed the 2nd stage on the hero's journey. We accepted the mission, we went the distance, and we proved it. We got the aha moment. What's the aha moment? It's when we realize that everything we've been told about how to get and stay healthy has been a lie. That our so-called experts are not experts at all. They've been bamboozled, and they're bamboozling us. In fact, I used to be very critical of this group of people until I realized that they have been tricked and fooled just like we have. But it's no excuse for them not to wake up, except they have this subsequent need for money, and they don't want to go from the richest and the most respected to the poorest and most persecuted, which is in effect what might happen if they came out and said, hey, I'm sorry, this person died, we could have saved their life if I wasn't involved, and we would have just changed what you're doing. If you'd have done that juice fast or the juice feast or that juice cleanse, take a solid food vacation so you could get rid of that cesspool, which has caused them so many diseases. Hypercolonic tension is what leads to so many other diseases. Death begins in the colon. And now that dang guy in the background making all that noise has come back on. And if I can't hear it and I waited 30 minutes and missed out, I'm going to be a little peeved. I was peeved earlier. Ah! Okay, so time to get excited. It's time to test an idea as time has come. If you're on the hero's journey, it's time to keep going out there, keep grabbing, getting more information. Don't take anyone's word for anything. Prove it to yourself. Keep a journal. Document everything. Have compassion for those who don't understand what we're doing, even though some of them are psychopaths. Now, for those, you don't want to give compassion to those because that just infuriates them even more. You have to remember that there are about 4% of the population that are literally psychopaths. I highly recommend watch this documentary, Defense Against a Psychopath. It's only 37 minutes long, action-packed, not one wasted word, not one wasted sentence. It really helps you understand how to walk in the shoes of the people who rule the world, because that's what they are. They have no empathy. And they're masters of illusion. They're tricking us and they're fooling us. And that's, again, the purpose of getting on the hero's journey, getting reconnected, Get rid of piece 103.89 and get 101.69. That's where we satisfy our need for community, which is piece 30. So there's a very simple solution to most of our problems. In fact, the ultimate solution for any problem that's 100% within our control is the ultimate solution for all of our problems that are 100% within our control, because the only solution is you got to satisfy two groups of needs. How can the ultimate solution for weight loss be the ultimate solution for starvation? It's simple. Satisfy your needs. If you're satisfying your needs, you're not overweight. Oh, it's my genes. No, it's not. If you're starving, you're not satisfying your needs. Okay, feed these people. The people who are obese, feed them the right foods. You're not eating the right foods. Your dietary mistakes are recorded in your flesh, and stop blaming your genes. There's only a very small percentage of people who can actually say, yep, the genes are the reason why I have these problems. But remember, where do genes come from? The genes are the accumulation of our ancestors' lifestyle choices. Sienna, come. Don't go running off on me. Good girl. So once again, it's time to get excited. It's time to test an idea as time has come. It's time to continue on the hero's journey. It's time to share this message. It's time to tell everybody you know they don't have to suffer. And don't be disheartened if they burst your bubble and they're not ready for it. That's the sad part about the hero's journey. It's not like coming out of Plato's cave. It's exactly like coming out of Plato's cave. When we're in a cave of ignorance where life is an illusion, and it hurts to turn back and look into the light, which is like looking in the mirror or realizing we're the enemy and that we got to change what we're doing. But if you look hard enough, you can break those chains and you get out of the cave. And those who come out of the cave, who care about all their friends and family that are back in the cave, they go back into the cave and say, my friends, my family, life is an illusion. Stop looking at the shadows on the wall. Look back into the light. And when everyone looks back into the light, they go, oh my God, it hurts. What's wrong with you? Why would you make me look into the light? So this is what you're going to be up against. It's not easy to go back into Plato's cave and tell people they're making mistakes. Correction is not... How's that quote by Shelton goes? Correction is not always tasteful to the truant child, said Trawl, something to that effect. That's part of the problem. So some people have a lot more tact than I do when it comes to trying to wake people up. And you never know who you're going to appeal to. And don't get discouraged when you don't get enough other people that are excited about this as you are. And then be aware there is controlled opposition. There are shills everywhere. There are useful idiots that part of their army. There are psychopaths. Understand your enemy. Don't dwell on them. Be aware of them. Realize the damage they've done so we can do damage control in addition to getting reconnected. So that's the message of this series. Get reconnected. Do damage control. Take away all these corrupt laws that are being used to control us. And let's turn this paradise back into the place it was meant to be. Let me pan around and show my little baby's shave. I shaved her earlier today. That's why I said she's vulnerable. Come, Sienna, get back here. Come here. Come here, girl. Where are you? Come. 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 Can you hear me? See me? You got company. And here they come. Look out, you're getting sniffed. Ah, Sienna girl. Sienna, come. Look at me, baby. Oh, we don't want to show that. Alright, that's somehow an appropriate ending for this video series. Because that's what it's all about. Getting rid of stuff that don't belong inside of us. Till next time.